Chapter 346. The light shield shone brightly, illuminating 9 dragons hidden behind the screen. Hey! You really know how to talk big, Mr. Knight. Although I don't know where you heard the name of the Lambda drive system, don't think that you can win just by blocking one blow? Fierce poison. No, this silver is called fierce poison by Mithril. A white light flashed in front, and a meteor-like flash blasted toward Lancelot in midair. Boom! An ear-piercing roar exploded again, but the result was still the same. The light shield in front of Lancelot, who was hovering in midair, was still shining brightly. It was not broken by the attack launched by fierce poison through the Lambda drive system. TSK. It really is a sturdy tortoise shell. Since 9 dragons took over this fierce poison test machine from the organization, it had never been in such a predicament. After 9 dragons became familiar with and mastered the use of the Lambda drive system, he, who liked to kill, became the god of death on the battlefield. He wantonly teased all the opponents who became his enemies. Again and again, he used the powerful and mysterious power of the Lambda drive system to set off waves of bloody killings. But now, fierce poison met his opponent. The unknown power surrounding Lancelot's body could actually block the attack launched by fierce poison's Lambda drive system. Judging from this result, Mecha's statement just now was not false at all. He had indeed seen through the essence of the Lambda drive system. So what? 9 dragons, who had gone through life and death countless times on the battlefield, did not retreat because of this. Both of his hands moved slightly, and fierce venom once again launched the same attack as before. In the fierce wind that was stirred up when the attack was launched, fierce venom rushed to the other side in a flash and rushed toward Lancelot's back. 9 dragons' intuition was sharp. Although the exchange just now was short, he could vaguely see that Lancelot's beam shield seemed to be able to protect the front, as well as the left and right sides of the cockpit. However, the backpack-like cockpit should not be protected by the beam shield. Yes. The 9 dragons' gaze was precise. At a glance, he could tell the purpose of the huge backpack Lancelot was carrying. As long as this fatal weakness was exposed, the 9 dragons would definitely win this battle. However, would Mecha allow the 9 dragons to attack him as they pleased? The answer was obvious. The light shield in front of Lancelot was still strong. No matter how many times fierce venom attacked, it could not break through Lancelot's radiation shield. Moreover, the moment fierce venom began to move, Mecha already knew 9 dragons' plan. Bang! Lancelot waved his hands, and the hook claws on his forearms suddenly attacked. Under the cover of the night, it moved like a poisonous snake and went straight for fierce venom. The moment the claw shot out, the 9 dragons sensed that something was wrong. Especially when Lancelot waved his hands, the 9 dragons subconsciously paid attention to Lancelot's next move. As a result, the 9 dragons' instinctive defensive impulse immediately activated the Lambda drive system. Boom! At the same time, there was an explosion, and 2 sharp figures appeared in the white light that was madly condensing in front of fierce venom. Hook claws. It was the hook claws that Lancelot shot out. Hey! I didn't expect to be scared by such a toy. 9 dragons glanced at the 2 hook claws that were blocked by the defensive wall generated by the Lambda drive system and couldn't help but reveal a self-deprecating smile. However, I'll return such a toy to you, Mr. Knight. As soon as 9 dragons' voice fell, the white light in front of fierce venom suddenly gathered and instantly erupted with a force more powerful than the impact of the hook claws. It fiercely reflected the 2 hook claws back at Lancelot. However, the hook claws that were reflected back couldn't cause any damage to Lancelot at all. As long as the hook claws were still connected to Lancelot by the steel cable, then the hook claws would not be able to become a weapon to kill its owner. Ka! Under the influence of the rapidly contracting steel cable, the 2 hook claws returned to Lancelot's forearm, causing 9 dragons' plan to fail, and it also made him slightly unwilling. and the feeling of having his trump card seen through was not a good feeling. It's my turn. Fierce Venom's attacks missed time and time again, and Ray Minkai and Lancelot were not targets that could only be beaten. As soon as the light wings were retracted, Lancelot, who was hovering in mid-air, fell from the sky like a meteor and went straight for Fierce Venom. This was falling into Nine Dragons' trap. In his opinion, since he couldn't get an advantage in a mid to long-range battle, then he would try a close-range battle. Nine Dragons didn't believe that in a close-range battle, that layer protected Lancelot well. How much of an effect could the damn light shield have? The Lambda drive system only took an instant to activate. In a close-range situation, it wouldn't give anyone time to react in time. The storm-like red light accompanied Lancelot's rapid fall and splashed on Fierce Venom's head. Nine Dragons' spirit condensed, and the Lambda drive system was instantly activated. In a white light, it easily condensed a force wall and blocked the radiation vibration sword in Lancelot's hand. In the face of such a situation, Ray Minkai wasn't surprised, nor did he show a trace of panic. This was still within Ray Minkai's expectations. Despite this, Lancelot's attack didn't stop. On the contrary, it became even more violent. After Lancelot's feet completely landed on the river, the increasingly fierce attack enveloped Fierce Venom like a storm. Even if Fierce Venom's body was far taller than Lancelot, who was less than 5 meters tall. In the eyes of Xiangliang Sosuke, who had already hidden to the side, Lancelot, who didn't stop attacking for a moment, was like a berserker in a myth. The enemy wouldn't stop until the enemy died, or until the enemy died. So strong. That teacher is actually so powerful. TSK. It's really annoying to be suppressed like this. Nine Dragons, who was suppressed for so long, didn't expect the 2 radiation vibration swords in Lancelot's hands to be flawless. It didn't give him a chance to gather his spirit and launch another attack. No matter how familiar Nine Dragons was with using the Lambda drive system to attack, he still needed time to convert this strong spiritual impulse into physical impact through the Lambda drive system. At this moment, Lancelot wouldn't give him this opportunity at all. In desperation, Nine Dragons chose to retreat on the spot. Forcefully withstanding the attack of Lancelot's Tempest sword force, he raised his hand abruptly, risking both of them being injured, and went straight for Lancelot's chest. His hand flashed with an extremely deadly white light. Obviously, in order to force Lancelot to retreat, Nine Dragons was ruthless. He directly converted all his defensive impulses into offensive impulses and poured all of them into Fierce Venom's right fist. This attack was extremely terrifying. But Ray Minkai didn't choose to use the radiation shield to meet force with force. Instead, he chose to retreat. Walala! Amidst the splashing of water, Fierce Venom's right fist flashed with white light and Lancelot quickly retreated. In just a short moment, the 2 sides who were still entangled with each other just separated. Bang! Before the high splashes of water could settle, Lancelot, who was retreating, launched another attack. Hook claw again. Under the threat of Fierce Venom's right fist, Ray Minkai chose to retreat, but he didn't choose to retreat. Just at the moment when Fierce Venom had not retracted his right fist, Lancelot's hook claw shot out like a shadow and rushed to the front of Fierce Venom under the cover of the water. What? Although the water wasn't enough to block the vision, under the night sky and the factors brought about by the fierce battle, it achieved the surprise attack in front of Nine Dragons. Seeing that the sharp hook claw had rushed to the front, Nine Dragons subconsciously controlled Fierce Venom to jump back again and again, trying to pull away from the hook claw and fight for a chance to defend. However, the hook claw's speed was very fast, almost biting Fierce Venom, who was retreating quickly. In the face of the oncoming crisis, Nine Dragons' eyes were almost left with this hook claw. While jumping back quickly, Fierce Venom, who stepped on a boulder protruding from the bottom of the river, finally found a chance to get rid of the hook claw. Chance. 9 dragons, who had been suppressed for so long, finally found a chance to launch an attack. Boom! The sound of the wind suddenly rose, and the fatal white light in front of fierce venom disappeared in an instant. The hook claw that was biting fierce venom was sent flying with a bang, and in the fierce storm, it spun and flew backward. No! Where's the white body? In an instant, before 9 dragons could breathe a sigh of relief after getting rid of the hook claw, he was surprised to find that Lancelot had disappeared. Furthermore, he didn't even know when Lancelot had disappeared and how he had disappeared. Not good. The next moment, 9 dragons, who was alarmed, drove fierce venom to roll to the right, and at the same time, raised his left hand and slammed to the side. Buzz. Bang! The unique light flashed when the Lambda drive system was activated, and another hook claw was blocked. Damn toy again! 9 dragons roared, and when the impulse to defend turned into an impulse to attack again, he once again knocked away the attacking hook claw. In the next second, 9 dragons turned around abruptly, and at the same time, fierce venom also raised his right hand and slammed to the back. Lambda drive system activated. Hook claw. It was still a hook claw. Lancelot's figure was still not found, but the tricky and flexible hook claw was like a poisonous snake staring at its prey. It was impossible to guard against. If fierce venom was careless, he would inevitably be penetrated by the sharp hook claw. At this moment, 9 dragons finally realized a problem. A problem that Ray Minkai had expressed before the start of the battle. Not only did he see the true face of the Lambda drive system's attack, but he also saw the weakness of the Lambda drive system. No matter how powerful the power of the Lambda drive system was, it still had a fatal limitation. The pilot who piloted the as equipped with the Lambda drive system, no matter how skilled he was in controlling the system, when he activated the Lambda drive system, he would inevitably focus his mind in the same direction. Otherwise, he would not be able to reach the upper limit of the spiritual fluctuation to activate the Lambda drive system. Now, the constant attack that was like a carbuncle that did not give 9 dragons any time to breathe was undoubtedly under the premise of seeing through this weakness. Was I seen through? Even if 9 dragons was aware of this, he still couldn't launch an effective counterattack. Therefore, 9 dragons, who was in for a penny, in for a pound, risked being penetrated by the hook claw and rushed into the forest on the side of the river. Did he escape into the forest? The light wings slowly retracted, and Lancelot, who had put away the 2 hooks, landed on the river and watched 9 dragons and fierce venom disappear into the forest. Lay, teacher, lay. Please don't rashly pursue. That person is not an easy opponent. Xiangliang Sosuke, who had been hiding and watching for a long time, warned. Student Xiangliang Sosuke. Now I remember to use the right name. Thank you for your warning. However, I also know who this man is. If I let him go back like this, I'm afraid there will be more twists and turns in the future. After Ray Minkai glanced at Xiangliang Sosuke on the screen, his voice was transmitted to Xiangliang Sosuke's ears through the speaker. In addition, student Xiangliang Sosuke. Now, what you should do is to immediately return to the Air Force Base. Your teammates have already started to rescue you. I've already sent Chidori back. If you're any later, you won't be able to go back. Ray Minkai's decision had already been made, and would not be cancelled because of Xiangliang Sosuke's warning. Moreover, before pursuing, Ray Minkai still needed to send Xiangliang Sosuke away. Otherwise, when the White Cat State Zero rushed over to meet, there would be an additional third party on the battlefield. Yes. Return immediately. After learning that Chidori and everyone had begun to retreat, Xiangliang Sosuke did not hesitate and immediately began to return. After all, the battle just now was undoubtedly Xiangliang Sosuke's attempt to lure the extremely unstable 9 dragons away from the Air Force Base, so that his teammates could carry out the rescue in a safer situation. The infrared detector on Lancelot's chest popped out and constantly scanned the surrounding situation. Soon, an extremely conspicuous infrared image appeared in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. There was no doubt that this was fierce poison. Due to the immature technology, fierce poison, with its powerful attack power, still had a serious problem of overheating. After using the Lambda drive system for a long time, the high temperature emitted by fierce poison was almost as conspicuous as a small sun under the infrared detector's scanning. Not escaping? At this moment, Nine Dragons was undoubtedly in a decisive posture. This was also what Ray Minkai wanted. However, Lei Minkai would not rush into the forest rashly and engage in a battle with the 9 dragons that were hiding inside. The radiation vibration sword was sheathed, and the Vari's rifle was in his hand. Then, when Lancelot held the Vari's rifle with both hands, the many components at the front of the rifle began to slide and extend forward. In the blink of an eye, under the extension of the many components, the Vari's rifle changed from normal mode to illumination mode. Beep beep. The crosshair was locked and the trigger was pulled. A dazzling sun seemed to rise in the dark forest. Chapter 347. The scorching huge beam of light extended from the river to the depths of the forest. Everything in its path was reduced to ashes. Wherever it passed, it was as if a sharp blade had carved out a deep gash in the forest, so deep that the bones could be seen. Looking down from above, this scar that extended from the river to the depths of the forest was extremely eye-catching. At the end of this scar, fierce venom quickly retreated, and at the same time, the brighter white light in front of it was even more eye-catching. What kind of monster is this? How can it make such a terrifying attack? Could it be that it's also the system? The pressure that came head-on made 9 dragons subconsciously want to escape. This kind of attack was the first time 9 dragons, who had long regarded fighting as a common occurrence and even took life as a joy in life, witnessed it with their own eyes. But even so, 9 dragons still knew the horror of this attack. Retreat. Retreat. Retreat again. But no matter how fast 9 dragons' instincts were, it could not be faster than the beam shot by Lancelot. At the moment of approaching death, 9 dragons' will to survive was extremely powerful. The sharply rising spiritual fluctuations were enough to stimulate the potential of the Lambda drive system, but at the same time, it also put a great burden on Fierce Venom's heat dissipation system. Perhaps it would only take a moment for Fierce Venom's system to crash due to the sudden high temperature of the Lambda drive system. 9 dragons didn't care about this. He only cared about whether he could obtain a chance of survival in this struggle between life and death. Beep 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 beep. Fierce Venom's cockpit was filled with the noisy prompts, and 9 dragons' mind was highly concentrated. In this situation, perhaps 9 dragons felt the pressure of life and death for the first time in a long time. Boom! The beam of light arrived as expected. The white light caused by the Lambda drive system's full performance rushed to the front of Fierce Venom, blocking the path of the beam of light. However, the Lambda drive system could only block the advance of the beam for a second. 1 second. Enough. 9 dragons' eyes widened, and he used all his strength to drive Fierce Venom. The moment the beam of light shattered the force wall condensed by the Lambda drive system, he barely escaped from the pressure of death. Finally, in the midst of the rapidly rising heat wave, Fierce Venom dragged his fluttering hair and landed on a boulder that had been spared. He silently looked into the distance. Lancelot slowly put down the Vari's rifle. What a monster! Once again, the 9 dragons cursed from the bottom of their hearts. Lancelot's sudden attack completely ruined 9 dragons' plan to use the cover of the forest to engage in close-range combat with Lancelot. As long as Leto continued to attack like that a few more times, no matter how the 9 dragons persisted, it would be useless. No matter how strong the cover provided by the forest was, as long as the enemy stood by the river and wantonly fired a few laser beams, they would be able to force the poison out of the forest. Of course. At this time, taking advantage of the opportunity when Lancelot put down the rifle that can make terrible attacks, 9 dragons can immediately drive fierce venom to retreat. However, in this way, this transaction was equivalent to a failure. Although, before this, allowing the Mithril AS troops to land on the Air Force base was undoubtedly a failure of the deal. Is it time to retreat? The moment this idea arose in 9 Dragons' mind, he accepted it without hesitation. Therefore, the moment the Silver AS raised a trace of residual energy sparks on the scar that penetrated the forest, it turned around without hesitation and quickly rushed into the dark forest. Want to escape? The moment fierce venom disappeared into the shadows of the forest, Ray Minkai's eyes flashed with a hint of astonishment. What he didn't expect was that the ferocious 9 dragons would escape. Chase. There was no hesitation. The light wings behind Lancelot spread out, then he rose from the ground and plunged into the forest, chasing in the direction of fierce venom's escape. The full moon gradually set in the west. Although the high-temperature crisis caused by the explosion of the Lambda drive system almost caused fierce venom to crash on the spot, it also saved 9 dragons from the threat of death at that moment. Moreover, when 9 dragons chose to retreat without hesitation, fierce venom, who was temporarily out of the battle, also got a chance to breathe. The high-temperature crisis caused by the explosion of the Lambda drive system gradually subsided. Can he escape? After running rapidly for a long distance in the dark forest, 9 dragons subconsciously glanced at the picture displayed on the radar screen. The result was negative. The light spot chasing fierce venom's back was still clearly visible. No matter how fierce venom chose the retreat route under the control of 9 dragons, he could not get rid of Lancelot, who was chasing behind. If this continues, the situation faced by fierce venom and 9 dragons will be no different from the battle just now. Thinking of this, 9 dragons' expression was still calm, and there was not even a trace of fluctuation. It was just that, in the next second, 9 dragons suddenly stopped fierce venom's movement and resolutely turned to face Lancelot, who was chasing him. He slowly pulled out fierce venom's only weapon now, the single-molecule vibrating sword. Although the name of this combat weapon was different, it did work on the same principle as Lancelot's radiation vibrating sword. Hee. Looking at Lancelot, who unfolded his light wings and flew over unhurriedly, 9 dragons suddenly let out a few sneers. Then he looked at Lancelot coldly and said slowly, "I probably forgot. Such was the nature of fighting on the battlefield. Either you die or I die. 9 dragons, you're not running anymore." Lancelot hovered in the air in front of fierce venom, looking down at as from above. "Run? What's worth running? Mr. Knight, are you addicted to chasing?" 9 dragons sneered and mocked Ray Minkai. "It seems that you're ready to face death." As soon as Ray Minkai's voice sounded, Lancelot raised his right hand, and the Vari's rifle immediately locked onto fierce venom and fired. But 9 dragons saw through Lancelot's movements the moment Lancelot raised his gun and jumped up on the spot. He actually ran straight toward Lancelot. As a matter of fact, Lancelot was now in midair, and 9 dragons still had the courage to put fierce venom in danger. Boom! At the moment when the bullets fired by the Vari's rifle blasted a deep pit in the forest below, fierce venom, who jumped high, had already rushed to Lancelot. At the same time, the single-molecule vibroblade in his right hand went straight to Lancelot's chest. Bang! The harsh sound of impact resounded through the night sky. It was Lancelot's radiation vibroblade and fierce venom's single-molecule vibroblade collided. Both of them had high-frequency vibration, and countless sparks burst out between the two powerful weapons, illuminating the heads of Lancelot and fierce venom. Fierce venom's single-molecule vibroblade was blocked. But it was not the end of 9 dragons' attack. Under the sparks caused by the collision of the two high-frequency vibration weapons, fierce venom's left hand raised and went straight to Lancelot's abdomen. Among them, A faint light that was fainter than the previous white light caused by the Lambda drive system lit up from Fierce Venom's left palm. This was Nine Dragon's killer move at this moment. He knew that as long as Lancelot was given a chance, he would never leave any time for him to use the Lambda drive system to launch an attack. Then, Nine Dragons would take a step back. Not to destroy, only to injure. As long as he could cause even a trace of damage to Lancelot, it meant that Fierce Venom would inevitably usher in the moment of full power. At that time, Nine Dragons would have the opportunity to turn the tables. But would Ray Minkai give him this opportunity? Fierce Venom was not the only one who had a free hand. Lancelot was the same. The moment Fierce Venom's left palm was about to hit Lancelot's abdomen, the radiation shield installed on Lancelot's chest was instantly activated. The light shield that Nine Dragons hated to the bone lit up again. Boom! The moment the faint white light hit the light shield, a strong force erupted and forcibly separated Fierce Venom and Lancelot. Fierce Venom fell to the ground like a kite with a broken string. The other was Lancelot, who had been sent flying backward for some distance before he managed to stop himself under the control of the light wings. Hum! In the low buzzing sound emitted by the electromagnetic muscles, Fierce Venom landed steadily on the ground. It's really a turtle shell. At this moment, Nine Dragons seemed to feel the terrible despair he once felt when he used the Lambda drive system to swagger those enemies who constantly attacked him and then fell into the abyss of despair. Disadvantage. Nine Dragons knew that he was now at a disadvantage. Lancelot, who had the ability to fly, already had an innate advantage, not to mention that damn layer of light shield with defense power that was not inferior to the Lambda drive system. In the end, did he still have to escape? Nine Dragons' eyes flashed, and Fierce Venom ran quickly again. He did not turn around to escape, but ran straight toward Lancelot. Bang! Bang! The Vari's rifle in normal shooting mode locked onto Fierce Venom's figure and fired bullets that were enough to shatter the barbarian into pieces. Boom! Boom! In the face of Lancelot's shooting, Nine Dragons did not rush up against the Lambda drive system's force wall like before when he abused the small fries. Instead, he took a rare evasive maneuver and continued to accelerate toward the boulder closest to Lancelot. In the roar of the explosion, Fierce Venom, with his braids flying, rushed to the side of the boulder and used all his strength to kick on the boulder. He rushed toward Lancelot like a sharp sword out of its sheath. Bang! The two high-frequency vibration weapons collided once again. The same hissing sound and the same sparks appeared again in the sky above the forest. However, this time, Nine Dragons came prepared. At the moment when the single-molecule vibration sword in Fierce Venom's hand reached its peak, Fierce Venom suddenly let go of the single-molecule vibration sword in his hand, allowing Lancelot's radiation sword to cut it in half. Then, Fierce Venom brazenly ignored Lancelot's radiation sword and with a circle of his hands, he once again pushed toward Lancelot's abdomen. Boom! The next second a white light flashed. An extremely terrifying impact erupted between Fierce Venom and Lancelot without warning. The loud roar. As soon as it appeared, the dazzling white light that illuminated the forest became the death bell of the battle at this moment. The huge shock wave set off by the explosion blasted a huge pit tens of meters in length and width in the forest below, and the edge of the huge pit was full of trees that were broken by the shock wave. Amidst the billowing smoke, countless flaming remains were scattered all over this messy place. Among them, a figure with sparks all over his body broke through the smoke. After tumbling several times in the air, he finally managed to maintain his posture under the support of the flickering light wings and slowly landed on the edge of the huge pit. He really is a lunatic. The screen in front of him was a warning that Lancelot's body was in different degrees of damage. It was Lei Minkai's fortune to be able to land on the ground in such a state of near collapse. Just now, in the momentary battle, 9 dragons actually used Lancelot's radiation sword to break Fierce Venom's monomolecular vibration sword. At the moment when 9 dragons was about to cut Fierce Venom in half, he fully activated the power of the Lambda drive system and hit Lancelot's radiation shield with full force. As a result, the explosion just now blew Fierce Venom into pieces and destroyed Lancelot's radiation shield completely, almost burying Lancelot in the explosion. In the end, Rei Minkai's luck seemed to be a little bit more than 9 dragons. Lancelot, who was covered in wounds and broken armor, opened the cockpit. Rei Minkai, who was holding a pistol, jumped down from the cockpit. After looking around, he immediately ran towards the place where he saw the wreckage of the cockpit that was suspected to be Fierce Venom's. Logically speaking, no one should be able to survive the self-destructive explosion just now. However, when he thought of 9 dragons' vitality that was comparable to that of a cockroach in the original work, Rei Minkai felt that he had to shoot this guy a few more times. He would only feel relieved when he saw him stop breathing with his own eyes. Gotcha! Gotcha! Rei Minkai stepped on the broken branches and quickly came to the wreckage of the suspected cockpit. After taking a closer look, it was just as Rei Minkai imagined. 9 dragons did not die. Rei Minkai could clearly see through the cracks of the broken cockpit. Even if his head was covered in blood at this moment, 9 dragons was still alive. Even under this serious injury, 9 dragons could barely open his eyes and look through the cracks at Rei Minkai, who was standing outside and pointing a pistol at him. Yo, Mr. Knight. You won. Rei Minkai's fingers slowly tightened. Yes, I won. 9 dragons. Hey, if it weren't for that layer of turtle shell you would have lost. Mr. Knight. Don't be happy too early. Mithril won't be able to jump for long. 9 Dragon's blood-covered face was filled with a hideous smile. You don't have to worry about this. 9 dragons, go in peace. Bang! As soon as the gunshot sounded, Rei Minkai's finger continued to pull the trigger, mercilessly pouring bullets at 9 dragons until all the bullets in the magazine were emptied. Until death, the smile on 9 dragons' face remained at that moment, hideous and terrifying. There was no look of remorse on his face at all when he was facing death. Chapter 348. Beside Lancelot, who was full of scars, stood a young girl and a huge snow-white lion. TSK. You're in a sorry state this time. Kai. Lancelot has been tormented by you to such an extent. State Zero looked at Lancelot's injuries from head to toe and said in surprise. Ever since Lancelot became Rei Minkai's exclusive mech, it was the first time that Lancelot had suffered such a serious injury. It was also an eye-opener for State Zero. At the same time, it gave him a chance to mock Rei Minkai. If you let me come along, Lancelot wouldn't be in such a miserable state. Can you still activate it now? State Zero took a step forward and circled around Lancelot. He raised his huge paw and patted Lancelot's right foot. Caw! Unexpectedly, State Zero's slap caused a small piece of armor to fall off from Lancelot's right leg armor. TSK. That's really tough. State Zero lowered its head to take a look. It raised its claws and grabbed the armor fragment. It then threw it into its mouth and chewed on it with a crunching sound. Kai, can Lancelot still move? Do you want me to fix it? Rei Minkai, who was standing at the side, shook his head slightly. What do you think? Can he hold on until the seaside in this state? You still have to rely on me in the end. State Zero snorted a few times and turned into a white cat in a flash of white light. It jumped into the cockpit and started the function fusion. Brother, can Lancelot still move? Mira, who was standing quietly at the side, was worried. While the students of Sendai High School were moving, State Lion Zero, who was riding on Mira's back, easily avoided everyone's line of sight. It passed through the forest and came here, and saw Lancelot, who was covered in wounds. Mira, who almost thought that Rei Minkai had an accident, began to worry about Lancelot's condition after seeing Rei Minkai safe and sound. It's fine. Lancelot will be fine. Look, isn't it better now? Ray Minkai smiled and pointed at Lancelot's foot. There, the fine but clearly visible wounds were gradually healing, as if a life form was healing itself. This is? Lancelot healed himself? Mira furrowed her brows as a sudden headache overtook her head. She didn't know what was going on with the headache. She only knew that there seemed to be a strange consciousness trying to find out what happened to Lancelot. Driven by this consciousness, Mira subconsciously looked at Ray Minkai and tried to find out the result. However, at this moment, Myra's face was filled with fear. As long as he saw the fear on Myra's face, Ray Minkai understood what was going on. Sorry, Mira, I can only let you sleep for a while. After Ray Minkai apologized apologetically, he raised his hand and knocked Mira unconscious, just like what he did to Qian Yao. Facing Lancelot's current performance, Mira, who was also a whisperer, also had the same reaction as Qian Yao. However, Myra's reaction was much lighter than Qian Yao's. It must be known that the moment Qian Yao saw Lancelot appear, he immediately activated the Whisperer's instinctive reaction. As for Mira, only at this moment, after witnessing the recovery of Lancelot's injuries under the fusion of State Zero's functions, did he have a similar reaction. What a mess! Kai. It will probably take some time to completely heal Lancelot's injuries. Now what do we do? Do we have to stay here? The White Cat State Zero's voice came out from Lancelot's body. Obviously, the White Cat State Zero did not like the messy place they were in now. Moreover, if they continued to stay here, they would definitely be discovered by the enemies who came later. Let's go. I'm afraid there are already people waiting for us offshore. Ray Minkai carried Mira and returned to Lancelot's cockpit with the help of the White Cat State Zero. After that, facing the slowly rising sun, Lancelot spread his light wings, rose from the ground and flew towards the seaside. Lancelot's departure did not mean that this battle-scarred forest once again ushered in peace and tranquility. On the contrary, the following troops of SUVs and armored vehicles followed the traces left by fierce venom until the soldiers who came down from the vehicles found 9 dragons, who was killed by Ray Minkai in the wreckage of Fierce Venom's cockpit. Facing 9 dragons, whose upper body was full of bullet holes and was already dead, the soldiers looked at each other and did not know what to do for a while. Fortunately, a helicopter descended from the sky and brought someone who could let the soldiers know what to do. TSK. This movement is really big. As the helicopter's propeller gradually stopped, a man in a suit with a face full of white foundation and a painted smiling face walked down from the helicopter. Teacher. Behind the man, a pair of girls with the same face, and the only distinguishing feature was the length of their hair, walked down from the helicopter. Unlike the man, the pair of women, who were twins at first glance, walked quickly to the wreckage of Fierce Venom's cockpit with a shocked expression. Then, the surrounding air suddenly became extremely cold, and the soldiers next to the wreckage shuddered subconsciously. It's really regrettable. I didn't expect Sir Nine Dragons, who I've been looking forward to for a long time, to die like this. Sure enough, fate is unpredictable. And you, the people closest to Sir Nine Dragons, can't see him for the last time. This is a regrettable and sorrowful thing. The sudden cold air made the soldiers hold their breaths, but the clown-like man in a suit ignored the cold air. With a regretful tone, he walked step by step to the wreckage. He lowered his gaze and looked at Zhilong's hideous smile that was still hanging on his lips even when he died. Teacher, you left peacefully. Suddenly, the girl with long hair said in a cold voice. Yes, very peaceful. Then, we still have things to do. The short-haired girl's voice was even colder. Well, let's go. The long-haired girl nodded, but she looked back at the clown-like man in the suit. Your Excellency Mr. J. Sorry to trouble you with teacher's body. We still have some things to do. So, the clown-like man in the suit was named Mr. J? She wondered if this man named Mr. J was the same man who had met Mr. Q before. Two beautiful ladies, could it be that you want to avenge 9 dragons? Mr. J looked at the long-haired girl. The long-haired girl, who was as emotionless as an iceberg, had a slight fluctuation in her eyes, but no one noticed the slightest difference. Yes. This is our teacher's last wish. Virum. After the twin sisters boarded the helicopter again, the helicopter started its engine again and rose into the sky with a roar, returning to the air base at full speed. Standing next to the wreckage, the man named Mr. J seemed to sigh as he looked at the helicopter in the distance. The battle shrouded in hatred has appeared again. Humans would always make the same mistake. Sir, 9 dragons, don't you think so? Speaking of this, Mr. J couldn't help but lower his head and look at 9 dragons' bloody smile of death. I'm kind of looking forward to the fun of chatting with Sir 9 dragons. The night finally left. For the many students who were full of joy and yearning for the beautiful study trip under the blue sky and beach, after experiencing the thrilling kidnapping incident, they were finally escorted back to the base by the Mithril force carrying the name of the UN force. Of course, after a while, the study trip was naturally ruined. Most of the students in Class 2, Class 4, who were in despair didn't realize that there seemed to be one person missing among them. And this person was standing in the bridge of the Dan Slave's Son, hidden in the depths of the sea, looking at the screen in front of him with Teresa and Kalinin. Years 7, how do you feel? If you don't feel well, you can go back and rest. Kalinin's eyes flashed with a hint of concern as he looked at Xiangliang Sosuke and asked. Xiangliang Sosuke just shook his head and calmly replied, "Thank you for your kindness, Major. For me, this is just a small injury." Small injuries also need to rest, Sergeant Xiangliang. Sergeant Xiangliang, Teresa, who was very much in favor of Kalinin's suggestion, agreed. Faced with the pressure from the 2 superiors, even if he still insisted on staying in the bridge, Xiangliang Sosuke finally chose to listen and leave. After Xiangliang Sosuke left, Teresa returned to the topic at hand. Major Kalinin, what do you think of the order from the headquarters? While completing the hostage rescue mission, the Dan Slave's Son also received an encrypted order from the headquarters. The content was that the Dan Slave's Son was to immediately provide rescue for Ray Minkai, who was still on the battlefield. Teresa, who originally wanted to use the reason of not knowing the situation to observe for a while, was shocked by the satellite photos that were sent later. A deep trench left a scar in the forest that couldn't be erased in a short period of time, and at the end of this scar, there was a scene of devastation that seemed to have been bombarded by a terrifying number of heavy artillery. Without a doubt, this was a battlefield photographed by the satellite. Moreover, the location of this battlefield was near the Air Force Base where the hostage kidnapping incident was discovered. Major, have you seen Xiangliang Sosuke's preliminary report? Holding this satellite photo, Teresa asked the question in her heart. Yes. Although I don't believe that the enemy who died in front of me back then will come back to life, I believe in Sergeant Xiangliang Sosuke. Kalinin's eyes stared at the main screen as he expressed his opinion word by word. After hearing Xiangliang Sosuke's words, Kalinin was also surprised when he learned that 9 dragons came back to life. Really? But there is no such thing as a miracle of coming back to life in this world. If there is such a thing, it's better to believe that something happened when you killed 9 dragons back then that led to 9 dragons' survival. Speaking of this, Teresa smiled slightly, and at the same time, she waved the satellite photo in her hand. But now, maybe 9 dragons is about to die. Logically speaking, this scale of destruction shouldn't be caused by 2 AS-class fighters. However, whether it is the intelligence or Sergeant Xiangliang Sosuke's eyewitness report, they all prove a fact. Teresa thought about the appropriate words and slowly said, "In the confrontation between these 2 unfamiliar AS, there seems to be an unfamiliar force that is changing the power system of this world. although this force is very unfamiliar to us. Fortunately, one of the parties of this force seems to have good intentions towards Mithril. Kalinan's eyebrows twitched. He seemed to have understood Teresa's meaning. Sir Colonel, do you mean to execute the orders of the headquarters? You have to know that the son of the pill slave is the strongest force of Mithril. Although that's the case, the other party is the only AS in the world that can fly autonomously. The value of such an existence is probably comparable to the son of the pill slave. Teresa said, but she showed a trace of unwillingness to admit defeat. Cough. When Kalinan noticed that Teresa's words seemed to be out of control, he secretly coughed to remind Teresa. Then, Kalinan slowly said, Sir Colonel, you're exaggerating. Everyone knows the value of the son of the pill slave. Sir Colonel, don't belittle yourself. In addition, what kind of attitude do you think we should use to welcome the arrival of the guest? Attitude? Teresa was slightly taken aback, then went silent. The satellite photo in her hand was undoubtedly equivalent to revealing most of the other party's combat power. Under the premise of this fact, Teresa did not think that the son of the pill slave could take the initiative in the first meeting between the two sides. After a long time, Teresa finally made a decision. Major, after the son of the pill slave floats up, we will welcome the arrival of the guest. Yes, Sir Colonel. At the same time, a certain someone who was about to become the guest of the son of the pill slave was flying quickly on the cold ground. In addition, the roar of the engine was almost continuous. The cloud-like helicopters were teaming up to bite Lancelot's back. In front of Lancelot, there were more than 10 barbarians blocking the way. Hey, Kai. You've poked a hornet's nest. White Cat Zero's gloating voice was constantly heard. I just killed Jiulong in advance. Is there a need to chase me like this? When did the KGB branch chief become so sentimental? As soon as this was said, the fog in Ray Minkai's mind was suddenly split open by a bolt of lightning. The KGB branch chief was not the one who was sentimental. It was someone else. If someone close to Jiulong found out that Jiulong was killed by Ray Minkai, the first thing they would do would be to seek revenge. In addition to Jiulong's death, the attack on the Air Force base, and many other factors, the branch chief would definitely send troops to pursue Ray Minkai. Even if they did not come, someone close to Jiulong would definitely use some means to force the branch chief to agree. After carefully searching through his memory, Ray Minkai seemed to have found the answer. There were not many people who had a close relationship with Jiulong, the cruel executioner. In Ray Minkai's memory there were two. They were the twin sisters, Xia Yulan and Xia Yufeng. Chapter 349. The roar of the helicopter and the sharpness of the AS barbarians became the last obstacle for Lancelot to break into the ocean. In the eyes of ordinary people, this was undoubtedly a solid obstacle. No matter how strong Lancelot was, he would inevitably be destroyed. The branch director, who had a gun pointed at his forehead, thought so too. This was a threat. But when faced with the dark muzzle and the Gemini's cold face, the branch chief felt the same way when he faced 9 dragons who pulled out his gun and killed without saying a word. Therefore, under the threat of the Gemini's death, in order to save face and as much as possible to remedy the failure of the operation, the branch chief used almost all the forces that the Air Force base could mobilize. This was the reason why Lancelot was blocked by such a large number of forces. However, even if they used all the forces that the Air Force base could mobilize, it seemed that they could not stop Lancelot. Too fast. Relying on the unheard and unseen light wings in this world, Lancelot's maneuverability far exceeded the expectations of everyone who was paying attention to this interception battle. The armed helicopters that were a great threat to the AS barbarians could not even catch up to Lancelot. In this air chase, the role played by the armed helicopters was only the role of closely following behind Lancelot. Kai, can you turn back and kill those flies? Despite this, White Cat Zero was still dissatisfied with the armed helicopters chasing behind Lancelot, and even encouraged Ray Minkai to turn back and kill those armed helicopters. No, there's not enough time. A ray of sunlight was slowly rising from the sea level in the distance. If they turned back and killed the armed helicopters, it would inevitably waste some time. In this way, Lancelot's time to rush to the sea level would inevitably increase. Moreover, the barbarians blocking in front would probably take advantage of this time to tighten their defense line and reduce Lancelot's movement path as much as possible. TSK. Troublesome. White Cat State Zero, who also thought of this, was very unhappy, but in the end it tacitly agreed with Ray Minkai's approach. As the light wings expanded, a layer of mist visible to the naked eye peeled off from Lancelot's body in the blink of an eye. As it spread outwards, it formed a pale white ring of gas. Boom! The moment the sound of something exploding rang out, Lancelot suddenly pulled away from the armed helicopter and rushed in front of the barbarians in front of him. What? The barbarian pilot was shocked. Before he could react, Lancelot had already rushed in front of him and cut the two barbarians in front of him into pieces. Boom! When the wreckage fell to the ground, Lancelot had already rushed to the surface of the sea. The next moment, the wind stirred up by Lancelot's rapid flight followed closely behind. In the whistling sound of the wind, the remaining barbarians were thrown to the ground, unable to move at all. He escaped. The moment Lancelot broke through the barbarians' line of defense and flew towards the sea, cold sweat poured down his forehead like a rainstorm. The branch director, who had a pistol pointed at his forehead by the twins, seemed to have been drained of all his strength. He collapsed weakly on the ground. At this moment, the person who planned most of the plan and even the inhumane experiment on Mira had a pale face. Sister. The short-haired girl stared at the figure flying towards the sea and slowly opened her mouth to call out. Let's go. He is no longer of any use. We still have to fulfill our teacher's last wish. The long-haired girl glanced at the branch director, who had collapsed on the ground, and took the lead to leave. Just like this, under the gaze of many soldiers who subconsciously raised their muzzles, the twins who had just kidnapped the branch director left the Air Force Base, as if nothing had happened. Bang! The moment the twins disappeared from the Air Force Base, a gunshot rang out from the tower of the Air Force Base. On the vast and boundless sea, a giant whale-like warship quietly stopped on the surface of the sea. It was the strongest representative of Mithril, the son of Dan's slave. At this moment, as the captain of this warship, Teresa was standing beside the son of Dan's slave, quietly waiting for the arrival of a certain guest. As the accompanying representatives, Teresa's left and right hand, Lieutenant Colonel Richard, Major Kalinin, and other department representatives also stood behind Teresa, waiting together. Buzz! Amidst the sound of waves crashing against the armor of the son of Dan's slave, a strange buzzing sound faintly reached everyone's ears. Captain, the guest has arrived. The serious-looking Richard's ears twitched, quickly glanced at the sky to the west, and softly reminded. Everyone, cheer up. This is the first time we, the son of Dan's slave, receive a guest. Teresa nodded and clapped her hands to remind everyone. At the same time, she raised her head to look at the sky to the west. She saw that in the increasingly bright sunlight, the pair of light wings that Teresa only saw in the photos were flowing with faint light. Looking from afar, there was a strange beauty. The owner of this pair of light wings was an airframe with a completely different style from the mainstream AS. With white as the theme, golden gorgeous patterns as the decoration, and the night style as if it came out of the Middle Ages seemed to tell Teresa that this was not the AS of this world. Major Kalinin, do you think that's an AS? It's different from the AS made by other countries in the world, and even our Mithril. Suddenly, Teresa asked Kalinin beside her while looking at the white airframe that appeared above the son of the Dan slave and began to descend towards it. But Kalinin was silent. The appearance of the white airframe and its strange combat style refreshed Kalinen's understanding of the AS. No. Or perhaps Kalinen slowly exhaled. I'm very sorry, Sir Colonel. Even though I really want to classify this airframe as an AS, but due to its combat style and operation style, especially those wings of light, I don't dare, and I won't recognize it as an AS member. Perhaps its appearance means that there will be another force in this world that we are not familiar with. Kalinen's words made Teresa fall silent. But soon, the clever girl nodded and revealed a confident smile. Really? Thank you, Major Kalinen. I already know what to do. Yes. It's my duty to share the burden of Sir Colonel. Kalinen straightened his chest and responded solemnly. Colonel, the guests have begun to land. Richard, who was paying attention to Teresa's movements and observing the guests, reminded them in a timely manner. Good. Everyone, bring out your best state. Don't let Mithril lose face. Buzz! As the light wings stretched out, the white knight-like airframe slowly landed on the deck of the Son of Dan's slave. Click-chi! Then, with the sound of the safety lock being opened and the air pressure being balanced, the huge cabin behind the White Knight slowly opened. A figure flashed, and a young man who was holding a red-haired girl landed in front of Teresa and the others in a vigorous manner. He was Rei Minkai, who broke through the enemy's blockade with Mira and rushed into the sea. Welcome to the Son of Dan's slave. I'm Teresa Testarossa, the captain of this battleship. After looking up and down at Rei Minkai, who put down the girl in his arms, Teresa took the initiative to step forward and welcomed Rei Minkai and Mira. Hello. I'm Rei Minkai. This is Mira. Rei Minkai's answer was very simple. After reaching out and shaking hands with Teresa, he looked at the people standing behind Teresa. Welcome to the Son of Dan's slave. I'm Richard Maduka, the deputy captain of this battleship. Welcome. I'm Major Andrei Sergeyevich Kalinin. Richard and Kalinin respectively welcomed Rei Minkai in their own way. In this regard, Rei Minkai returned the greetings one by one. After the welcoming ceremony, Teresa dismissed the ceremony and brought Rei Minkai and Mira to the captain's room with Richard and Kalinin. Sir, don't worry about your body. Our logistics personnel have enough professional knowledge and strict professional ethic. They won't do anything to your body. As soon as she spoke, Teresa took the initiative to guarantee that the people on the Son of Dan's slave would not do anything to Lancelot. Rei Minkai didn't care about that at all, because, when he followed Teresa to the captain's room, he had already let the White Cat, Type 0, lock onto Lancelot's system. Therefore, no matter how powerful the technicians on the Son of Dan's slave were, they would not have thought that the key to unlock Lancelot's system would be a cat. However, the White Cat, Type 0, in Myra's arms, attracted Richard's attention. Cough. Captain. Our battleship doesn't seem to be able to bring cats in. Richard, who did not want to raise his opinion in front of Rei Minkai, found an opportunity and whispered a reminder in Teresa's ear. However, Teresa did not seem to care about Richard's reminder. Why, Richard? What's wrong with cats? You know, even the country in the north allows cats to live in nuclear submarines. Can't our Son of Dan's slave let cats in as guests? Richard's face stiffened, then straightened his back and stood behind Teresa without saying a word. Teresa's words were based on reality. In the age of great navigation, because of the need to store enough food and fresh water for ocean voyages, over time, there would naturally be the invasion of rats. In order to prevent rats from stealing food and gnawing on the wooden hull at that time, the existence of cats was naturally necessary. Even in modern times, this tradition would still be preserved by some countries. In this regard, the most prominent country in the north was the mighty country in the north. Not only did they let cats stay on the battleship, but they also let cats live in the national treasure, nuclear submarines. Therefore, in the face of this reality, no matter how much Richard insisted, he could only admit defeat. After all, the white cat in Myra's arms was just a guest. Thank you very much, Captain Teresa. Its name is Type 0, I hope it won't have any bad effects on you. Ray Minkai naturally heard the conversation between Richard and Teresa. Therefore, Ray Minkai, who returned the favor, also made a promise. Of course, even if Ray Minkai didn't make a promise, the white cat Type 0 wouldn't have any interest in this son of Dan slave. One must know that this guy not only stayed on the Universe City, but also saw many universe battleships bigger than the son of Dan slave. No. Such a cute cat can come to our son of Dan slave as a guest. I believe everyone will be very happy. Teresa shook her head slightly and showed a kind smile. Then, Teresa looked at Mira, who was holding the white cat Type 0 and remained silent. Hello. I'm Teresa Testarossa. You are Mira, right? Mira nodded silently, but didn't seem to want to talk. Sorry. In the previous battle, Mira seemed to have been affected. Now, it's best to let her rest a little. Ray Minkai's words made Teresa slightly stunned, but she quickly reacted. Is that so? Then, Richard, can you arrange for Mira to rest? Yes, Captain. Then, Miss Mira, this way please. Mira looked at Richard, then turned back to look at Ray Minkai. Go, Mira. Type 0 will accompany you. Okay. After watching Mira obediently follow Richard and leave, Teresa's gaze slowly returned to Ray Minkai's face and looked at him. Mr. Ray Minkai, it seems that you trust Mithril very much. Is it Mira? Or Lancelot? Ray Minkai smiled gently and said confidently, This is not a matter of trust. It's that I made enough preparations before this to avoid unexpected situations as much as possible. Unexpected situations. Teresa was a little surprised, but then she understood. Indeed, in the face of an unfamiliar situation, preparing more brands in hand was indeed the most appropriate thing to do. Then, I lost my composure. Mr. Ray Minkai. Before we officially talk, I hope Mr. Ray Minkai can answer a question of mine? Teresa, who had adjusted her state of mind, began to get into position. Please speak. Ray Minkai raised his hand slightly, indicating that Teresa could continue. I wonder how much Mr. Ray Minkai knows about the Whispers? Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows. He did not expect Teresa to be so straightforward. But Ray Minkai did not answer truthfully, but looked at Teresa with a faint smile. I don't know much, but I know that Captain Teresa, who is sitting in front of me, is one of the Whisperers. I don't know if I'm right? Ray Minkai's answer made Teresa speechless. Fortunately, Kalinin, who was standing beside Teresa, spoke in a timely manner to cover for Teresa. Mr. Ray Minkai, Miss Mira, who you saved before, may also be one of the Whisperers. Ray Minkai did not care much about Kalinin's cover for Teresa. He just nodded and let Teresa go. Yes. I know that Mira is a Whisperer. This is also one of the reasons why I saved her in advance. Could it be that Mithril wants to take Mira away from me? No. It's not that. We, Mithril, don't treat the Whisperers as anything. We just want to protect the Whisperers and let all the Whisperers live in an environment without any interference and malicious spying. Teresa hurriedly spoke for Mithril's operation to find the Whisperers. Maybe that's the case. But Ray Minkai pondered for a moment, as if he was looking for something. Mira can't be handed over to you. Since you already know that Mira is a Whisperer, then you should also know what kind of treatment Mira received before this. From the information we received, Miss Mira was indeed treated inhumanely. But we, Mithril, have a very perfect medical system. I believe that Miss Mira can receive perfect medical treatment there. 1-2. Kalinin also spoke his opinion after Teresa. Is that so? Your constant persuasion is making me feel like a bad person. But Myra's fate is not up to me to decide. Moreover, before that, we may still have a deal to make. A deal? Teresa and Kalinin looked at each other. Their thoughts seemed to be a little slow. Yes. Target A21. Perhaps we can exchange some information. Who knows? Isn't that right, Captain Teresa? Chapter 350. A 21. This code name was no stranger to Ray Minkai. The appearance of this code name represented the first appearance of the giant AS in the metal world, the debut of the steel monster. This steel monster was 5 times taller than ordinary AS and weighed thousands of tons Gouda. It could overwhelm all AS with its monstrous strength and weight. At the same time, it was also equipped with a lambda drive system. The combination of the two made the giant beast particularly terrifying. The reason for the birth of this monster was the product of the extreme thoughts of the amalgam itself. Of course, before the appearance of this steel monster, Mithril and even Teresa on the Son of Dan's slave had no idea about this monster. It also gave Ray Minkai an opportunity to fully reflect the equivalent exchange. After giving the reserved information to Teresa, Ray Minkai left, leaving Teresa and Kalinin, who silently watched him leave. Perhaps in the conversation just now, Teresa, who tried to persuade Ray Minkai to hand over Mira, didn't expect that her thoughts would change in an instant. Thus, she acquiesced to the current relationship between Ray Minkai and Mira, and temporarily put aside the idea of asking Ray Minkai to hand over Mira to Mithril. Sir Colonel. Kalinin, who stood behind Teresa, retracted his gaze from the automatic door and called softly. In the conversation just now, no, it should be said that in the transaction, Teresa used all her means to persuade Ray Minkai, but she didn't fail. Ray Minkai even used the information related to A21 to make Teresa compromise. Major Kalinin, is there any new news from the headquarters? Teresa wasn't as discouraged as Kalinin thought. After Ray Minkai left, Teresa began to ponder again. She pinched her braids and asked, "What's the matter?" "No, Sir Colonel. Although I have sent the news of Sir Ray Minkai boarding the ship to the headquarters, I haven't received any response." Kalinin answered Teresa's question truthfully. "Really? I got it. It seems that Uncle wants to leave this troublesome matter to me." Teresa chuckled. "But it's not bad." Finally, Teresa stood up and looked at Kalinin. "Major Kalinin, come with me to the bridge. I have some things to confirm with headquarters." "Yes, Colonel." In the first confrontation with Teresa, Ray Minkai, who had a slight advantage, was led by a Mithril soldier to the room that Richard had arranged for Mira to rest in. What Ray Minkai didn't expect was that the moment the automatic door opened, he saw a pile of bags with various packaging on the table. The pictures on these bags were all cat images from different angles. Obviously, the bag that took up the entire table was a pile of cat food from an unknown source. The moment they saw the pile of cat food, Ray Minkai and the Mithril soldiers standing behind Ray Minkai were stunned. "Brother, this was sent by the ant who claimed to be a chef." As soon as Mira, who was sitting on the sofa, saw Ray Minkai, she took the initiative to explain the origin of the cat food on the table. I got it." The corner of Ray Minkai's mouth twitched. He turned his head subconsciously and asked the Mithril soldier, who was also shocked by the cat food on the table, "Does the son of a pill slave have a cat?" No. I don't know why there is so much cat food. I still have work to do. Please forgive my rudeness." The Mithril soldier was puzzled by Ray Minkai's question, but he knew that if he continued to stay, he would inevitably be stopped by Ray Minkai. So, after apologizing, he turned and left. Ray Minkai didn't care about the soldier's departure. After confirming that there was no one on both sides of the passageway, Ray Minkai walked into the room and looked around. In addition to the eye-catching cat food and Mira sitting on the sofa, there was a bed in the corner of the room and a small cabinet for storing personal belongings. The furnishings of the entire room were exceptionally simple and neat. Among them, the target Ray Minkai was looking for was the cat lying on the small cabinet. "State 0, it seems that you are very popular." After the automatic door closed, Ray Minkai walked to the side of the table, picked up a bag of cat food and shook it. He listened to the sound of the cat food inside and said with a smile, "Shut up. This trash is not what I want." White Cat Zero, lying on the cabinet, opened its eyes slightly and retorted in a bad mood. "What? Didn't you also eat the steak that I cooked? This is also food." Ray Minkai's mouth had a playful smile as he constantly teased the White Cat Zero. Roar. "Shut up, Kai. Don't think that I don't dare to beat you up." The White Cat Zero, who was easily angered by Ray Minkai's teasing, waved its sharp claws and growled threateningly. Looking at the White Cat Zero that was about to explode, Ray Minkai rolled his eyes and ignored it. After all, this was not on land. If State White Cat Zero were to completely explode, this fellow might transform into a violent rage and reveal his lion form, tearing the Dan slave's son apart from the inside out. That would be a bit of a loss. When the White Cat Zero saw that Ray Minkai was no longer teasing the pile of cat food on the table, it took the initiative to change the topic. "Kai, do you still plan to continue driving your Lancelot?" "Yes, thank you, Mira." Ray Minkai, who took the cup from Mira, was a little confused, but still nodded. "Yes. According to the current situation, I can only use the Lancelot. Moreover, even if I use the Barbarian or the Mithril M9, I'm afraid it won't be able to adapt to my operation." "Then you'd better plan early. Although I healed the Lancelot's injury this time, I'm afraid I won't be so lucky next time." "What system is that?" The White Cat Zero licked its claws and looked at Ray Minkai. "Lambda Drive System." After Ray Minkai said the name, he asked the White Cat Zero, "Is there a problem?" "Yes." This time, although the Lancelot faced the Lambda Drive System head-on, you saw the result. If the radiation shield's defense was not strong enough, the Lancelot's end would be the same as the AS that was turned into fragments. The White Cat Zero's words made Ray Minkai frown. Its meaning was not difficult to guess. It was even a little straightforward. There was no other reason. Based on the current performance and body strength of the Lancelot, he was afraid that it had reached its limit. If he continued to use it, he might encounter the same situation as the 9 Dragons battle again in the near future. At that time, perhaps Ray Minkai would not be so lucky to be able to kill the enemy before the radiation shield reached its limit. However, if Lancelot was unable to cope with the next battle, then, the only body that Ray Minkai could use was, "Don't look at me first. Do you want to expose the existence of the Longfong lion now?" The White Cat Zero noticed Ray Minkai's gaze and immediately denied Ray Minkai's idea. Yes. Although the steel behemoth that was 5 times taller than an ordinary AS was about to make its appearance, the long-fanged lion that had a more eye-catching appearance than Lancelot and had a body style that belonged to this world couldn't make its appearance. After thinking about it, Ray Minkai seemed to only have one choice. Could it be that he had to snatch the body from someone? As soon as this idea popped up, Ray Minkai could not help but reveal a hint of playfulness in his eyes. According to the original storyline, it seemed that someone had not gotten the chance to appear on the scene. Under this coincidence, maybe, at this moment, Ray Minkai suddenly felt that someone seemed to be pulling the corner of his clothes. When he turned to look, he found that it was Mira. There was a hint of hesitation on Mira's face, as if she wanted to say something but did not dare to. "Mira, do you have anything you want to say?" Ray Minkai sat beside Mira and patted Mira's shoulder encouragingly. Mira blinked and seemed to be a little hesitant, but finally, under Ray Minkai's encouragement, she spoke her mind. "Brother, do you think that Lancelot can't cope with the next battle now?" As a survivor who escaped from the laboratory, Mira naturally knew why Lancelot and the other AS existed. Moreover, during the time she lived with Ray Minkai, Mira also knew some things. And, maybe so, the power of the Lambda Drive System is somewhat beyond my expectations. Although, before this, I already knew part of the truth of the Lambda Drive System. Facing Mira's doubts, Ray Minkai did not hide anything and directly told Mira the truth. Then, does that mean that brother is in urgent need of a new body? Mira was very smart. From the conversation between Ray Minkai and the White Cat, she learned this fact and bravely proposed her own idea. Brother, maybe Mira can help you. In front of the red hair, there was a pair of pupils that were a little afraid of being rejected, but were unusually determined. At this moment, Ray Minkai suddenly remembered that in the original work, Mira was the Whisperer who assisted in the development and production of the ARX-8 Roaring Flame Demon Sword. Could it be that the current Mira has begun to show the ability and ideas to assist in the development of the Roaring Flame Demon Sword? All kinds of thoughts constantly emerged in Ray Minkai's mind, but he looked at Mira's eyes seriously. Mira, what do you mean? Under Ray Minkai's gaze, Mira shook her head gently and was somewhat uncertain. I don't know, but I know that maybe in the aspect of AS, I can help you, brother. If Lancelot can't cope with the next battle, then I... At this point, Mira's voice paused, and there was a trace of struggle in her eyes, but in the end she quickly became determined again. Maybe I can design a brand new AS for you to pilot. Ha 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 ha. As soon as Mira finished speaking, the White Cat laughed out loud. Little girl, although I don't know where your confidence comes from, a weapon like as can't be made by a little girl just because she wants to. Even if you are the Whisperer in this world who has a black technology box, what can you use to develop Kai's body with nothing? Pa! Before the White Cat could finish speaking, Ray Minkai threw a bag of cat food on its little head, forcibly stopping its muttering. After interrupting the White Cat's beeping, Ray Minkai looked at Mira and asked carefully, Mira, why do you have this idea? I'll take care of things here. Your current state. No, brother. I just want to help. Mira is very grateful that brother saved me at that time. But Mira always had a thought in her heart. That is, I want to help brother. Especially after seeing Lancelot's appearance. When Mira was agitated, her emotions were somewhat out of control. Okay. In order to prevent Mira from losing control of her emotions again, Ray Minkai reached out and pressed on Mira's shoulder, and said softly, If this is what you want, Mira, then I will find a way to help you achieve it. Now, Mira, what you need to do is to have a good rest, okay? Under Ray Minkai's gentle persuasion, the emotional Mira gradually closed her eyes, and not long after, she fell into a deep sleep. What a naive little girl. The White Cat raised its paw and swept the bag of cat food aside as it watched Ray Minkai settle Mira down. But this is Mira's truest thought now. After Ray Minkai covered Mira with a blanket, he sighed softly. To be honest, Ray Minkai didn't peep at Mira's ability to help develop the Raging Flame Demon Sword from the beginning. It was purely out of pity for Mira's miserable human experiment that he helped her. In the end, it was Mira who took the initiative to request to design a new body for Ray Minkai. Perhaps this was what it meant to plant flowers that did not bloom, but unintentionally planted willows that grew. The White Cat silently watched Ray Minkai cover Mira with a blanket, and then turned and walked out of the room. Hey, Kai, you didn't take this little girl's words seriously, did you? Are you really thinking of ways to create an environment for her? Standing in front of the door, Ray Minkai's voice sounded unwavering. A knight's promise will definitely be fulfilled. Swoosh. The automatic door opened. Ray Minkai walked out of the room without looking back. If he wanted to fulfill his promise to Mira, Ray Minkai was afraid that he would have to pay a price. Moreover, if he wanted to fulfill his promise, Ray Minkai was afraid that he would have to go directly to Mallory, the old knight who founded Mithril. Perhaps he was already waiting for Ray Minkai to take the initiative to contact him. TSK. Always insisting on the knight's principle in inexplicable places. Who is the one who has been denying that he is not a knight? The White Cat curled its lips and glanced at Mira, who had fallen into a deep sleep. Really, a partner that gives me a headache. Chapter 351. The full moon was in the sky. The brilliant moonlight shone on the sea from the starry sky, forming a beautiful scene of sparkling waves. And in the midst of this scenery, there was a small island covered in a layer of gauze by the moonlight. Yours 6 has arrived at the target point. Now begin the final inspection before the test. CIC's voice sounded in the command hall. Inform yours 6. Once the inspection is completed, the test will begin immediately. Teresa, who was surrounded by Richard and Kalinin, sat in the command seat and ordered. Then she looked back at the girl sitting on the other side with the white cat in her arms. Mira, don't worry. We've already taken sufficient precautions. Mr. Ray Minkai will be fine. I can vouch for that in the name of Teresa Testarossa. In the face of Teresa's assurance, Mira nodded slowly, but did not say anything. However, Teresa did not treat her as an outsider. This was because during this period of time, Teresa already knew that apart from Lei Minkai, Mira had the same cold expression on her face towards everyone else. Sir Colonel, is it really okay? The 76mm sniper cannon used by my M9 is no joke. As long as you hit it head-on, you will be finished. Are we really going to hit it? At this moment, Cruz's voice sounded in the communication channel. Now, the sons of Dan Slave, who returned to the Merida Island base, ushered in an important body test. For this important body test, Teresa and other senior members of the Sons of Dan Slave were all present, and they also sent Cruz Wilba, who had the highest sniper level among the SRTs, as the main attacker of the test. Of course, this body test was not a one-sided show by Cruz. Instead, he let Cruz drive his beloved machine and perform an attack test on a new airframe that was classified as top secret. If there was an attack, there must be a defense. The attacking side was Cruz Wilba. The defending side was naturally Ray Minkai. Against Cruz's M9 was the ARX-7 crossbow that had been placed on the Sons of Dan Slave, but because of Ray Minkai's active activities, it missed Sosuke Xiangliang. Follow the plan. Yours 6. This test was permitted by the headquarters. So, do your best to complete this test. Kalinin said in a deep voice after exchanging a glance with Teresa. Yes. Since you've said so, I won't hold back. After receiving the precise order, Cruz unceremoniously entered the final stage. Hey, Mr. Knight. Are you ready? Yes, I'm ready. Ray Minkai loosened his hands and adapted to the somatosensory operating system that was completely different from Lancelot's operating system. He slowly nodded. This was the result of another transaction. Mira wanted to design a new body for Ray Minkai. Therefore, in order to fulfill this wish, Ray Minkai had to temporarily rely on the power of Mithril to complete it. Therefore, Ray Minkai contacted Mallory, who had been waiting for a long time. Mallory agreed to Lei Minkai's request without hesitation, and even proposed a condition for a trade. That was, Ray Minkai must work for the Son of Dan Nu for 3 months and assist the Son of Dan Nu in completing the testing of the ARX-7 crossbow, and even analyze and effectively use the performance of the Lambda drive system as much as possible. At this point, Ray Minkai had to admit that the older the ginger, the spicier it was. When Teresa, Kalinin, and the others still didn't know how Ray Minkai killed 9 dragons, Mallory, the two-faced person who was also a top personnel of Amalgam and Mithril, had already discovered the fact that Ray Minkai had some understanding of the Lambda drive system. The exchange conditions were not harsh. On the contrary, it was Ray Minkai's wish. Especially being able to drive the ARX-7 crossbow under Sosuke Xiangliang's command. No matter how he looked at it, Ray Minkai felt that he was making a profit. Therefore, Ray Minkai temporarily joined the Son of Dan Nu under the codename Knight and became the test pilot of the ARX-7 crossbow. Yours 6 and Knight, pay attention. Now, 30 seconds before the start of the test. The countdown of the last 10 seconds is about to begin. Understood. Ray Minkai responded, then slowly closed his eyes and began to focus his mind. To be honest, although Ray Minkai was very familiar with the information of the Lambda drive system, this was the first time Ray Minkai came into close contact with the Lambda drive system. Ray Minkai was not completely confident that he could activate the Lambda drive system. But before this, the White Cat State Zero glanced at Ray Minkai with disdain and threw down words full of contempt. Knight, who can withstand the turbulence of time and space, is actually worried about whether or not he can activate the little Lambda drive system. You disappoint me, Minkai. While the White Cat State Zero's mocking laughter was still echoing in Ray Minkai's ears, Ray Minkai's mind was also moving towards a peak. Then, in the distance, sparks exploded at the location of the M9 driven by Cruz. Bang! The flames flashed. When the gunshots crossed the jungle and reached Ray Minkai's ears, the front end of the crossbow driven by Ray Minkai had already flashed with a white light. That is? At this moment, the strange phenomenon in front of the crossbow made Teresa, Kalinin, Richard, and the others straighten up and watch the live broadcast from the experimental site intently. Woo 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 woo. In addition to the camera that faithfully transmitted the scene of the experimental site back to the command hall, there was also a sound capture setting that captured the sound perfectly and transmitted it back. As the white light became brighter and brighter, the sound of the howling wind constantly tore everyone's hearing. Just as the howling wind reached its peak, there was a loud explosion. Boom! A white light flashed on the front end of the crossbow, and the projectile shot from the 76mm sniper rifle instantly flew backward. It flew across the jungle at a speed faster than when it came, and flew past the M9, who could not react in time. The stone pillar behind the M9, which was 10 meters tall, was blown into pieces. Sitting in the M9's cockpit, Cruz was in a daze. He could not believe that he was driving the M9 to attack. What is going on? However, before Cruz could sort out his thoughts, Kalinin's voice sounded again. Yours 6, continue to attack. Yes. The soldier's instinct made Cruz wake up from his messy thoughts in an instant and once again returned to the state of a sniper with excellent sniping skills. Let me see it again. Mr. Knight, are you ready? The 76mm sniper cannon once again locked the crossbow in the crosshair. Ow! Crossbow state. After blocking Cruz's attack, Ray Minkai slowly exhaled. The power of the Lambda drive system was indeed powerful. As long as Ray Minkai focused, he was able to block the 76mm sniper bullet fired by Kurlut's M9 and bounce it back at a faster speed. If it weren't for the fact that Ray Minkai had no intention of aiming at Cruz's M9, Cruz would have been flipped over by the power of the Lambda drive system in the previous attack just now. Good condition, Knight. The crossbow state is still in its best combat state. While he was thinking, the AI on the crossbow, AL responded to Ray Minkai's question. Very good. Send the signal. Continue to experiment. Understood. AL faithfully executed Ray Minkai's order. Bang. In the next second, the unique gunshot of the 76mm sniper cannon broke through the air. Then, the mutation happened again. Under the watchful eyes of everyone in the command center, the scene from before happened again. The white light that suddenly lit up easily blocked the 76mm sniper cannon's bullet again, and the shocking scene from before was replayed again. Buzz. The moment the white light flashed, the right side of the M9 that Cruz was driving exploded. It was the debris that splashed into the sky after the stone pillar was blown up. There was no doubt. The M9's attack was bounced back again. Quick. Replay the scene just now. 10 times slower. Richard's eyes flashed and he immediately gave the order. As the main screen in the command hall flashed, the entire process of the M9's attack with the 76mm sniper cannon was played in front of everyone's eyes, frame by frame, at 10 times slower speed. The bullet left the chamber, flew over the jungle, and headed straight for the crossbow. Then, a white light appeared. After the bullet was blocked, the entire process of it bouncing back was seen by everyone without missing a single frame. There's such a magical power in this world. Kalinin, who had been on the battlefield for a lifetime, looked at the moment when the crossbow bounced back the 76mm sniper cannon's bullet with shock. Is this the power of the Lambda drive system? Captain. Richard took a deep breath and looked down at Teresa, who was sitting in her seat and constantly rubbing her braids. Obviously, even Teresa, who personally designed the Son of Dan's slave, was surprised by the power of the Lambda drive system at this moment. I don't know, Richard. Now that we have been able to create the Lambda drive system, we don't know the limits of the Lambda drive system. As she spoke, Teresa suddenly revealed a trace of a smile. However, now I know why Uncle made such a decision in the combat headquarters. For us, for the Son of Dan's slave, and even for the ERX-7 crossbow, a pilot who can familiarize himself with the Lambda drive system is valuable. After hearing Teresa's words, Kalinin showed a hint of contemplation, and finally nodded slowly. Okay. Now that the first stage has been completed, can we let Sir Ray Minkai proceed to the next stage? Seeing that everyone was no longer confused, Teresa immediately proposed a suggestion to proceed to the next stage. Okay. Yours 6, retreat to the safe area and wait. Then, Knight will move to the A3 area for the next stage of the test. Understood. Cruz responded, then drove the M9 to Ray Minkai from afar. After giving a thumbs up to encourage him, he turned around and left the area. Ray Minkai drove the crossbow step by step to the next test area, A3. At the same time, Ray Minkai sent a question to AL. AL. Report the current status of the crossbow. Understood. The balance is good, there are no abnormalities in both sides, and the system is operating without abnormalities. There are no abnormalities in the monitor performance. What about the Lambda drive system? No abnormalities. The current state of the crossbow was much better than Ray Minkai expected. After personally experiencing the power of the Lambda drive system, Ray Minkai suddenly felt that perhaps the world was already in his hands. No wonder 9 Dragons said that the Lambda drive system will have the power to change the world. Arrived at the A3 area. Knight, please prepare to begin the next stage of the test. The moment the crossbow entered the A3 area, AL immediately issued a reminder. Okay. Send a signal, prepare to activate the Lambda drive system. Understood. In the command hall, after receiving the signal from Ray Minkai, Teresa thought for a moment and slowly nodded. The second stage of the test begins. Understood. As the command hall issued a series of procedures, the crossbow in the A3 area was suddenly surrounded by various targets. This time, it was to test the attack performance of the Lambda drive system. Target confirmed. The number of tank-type targets is 10, the number of AS-type moving targets is 6, and the number of guncopter-type targets is 6. Knight, please begin the test. The moment the targets were raised, AL counted the total number and classification of all the targets. Understood. Ray Minkai responded and concentrated again. This was different from the previous defense of the 76mm sniper cannon. Ray Minkai must concentrate more and try to succeed in the first attack with the Lambda drive system. Attack? Then, use the most common method used by Knight to concentrate. This thought flashed in Ray Minkai's mind. Ray Minkai, who came from the Royal Knight Academy, was most familiar with the Knight's sword skills that he mastered. During that time in the academy, Ray Minkai could subconsciously concentrate to a very high degree every time he picked up the Knight's sword. Thus, Strong Crossbow slowly pulled out the longsword that Ray Minkai had specially requested to be temporarily attached to Strong Crossbow's waist before the test began. He held it tightly in his hand. Sword in my hand. The somatosensory operation of the AS gave Ray Minkai a very high intuitive feeling. When controlling the crossbow to pull out the long sword, Ray Minkai actually had an illusion for a moment, thinking that he once again pulled out the knight's sword that he forgot in the Knight Academy. Under the illusion, Ray Minkai had no distracting thoughts, just like when he waved the knight's sword, controlling the crossbow to raise the long sword. Then, with a wave, woo! In an instant, the entire command hall was filled with a strange whistling sound of the wind, as if something had torn the void at that moment. Oh, turn off the sound capture. Quick! Teresa frowned tightly and shouted the order to turn off the sound as loudly as possible. Puff! After CIC hammered the button to turn off the sound, the command hall finally became quiet. However, everyone's eyes were once again attracted by the amazing scene presented on the main screen. It was a piece of land that was plowed by something and became unrecognizable and messy. Trees, vines, all kinds of targets used for target practice, and even the bunkers that were not activated were all turned over and scattered on this messy land. And at the front of this land, it was the crossbow that slowly put away the long sword. Chapter 352. With just a swing of the sword, it created a destructive force comparable to a cruise missile. Such a scene constantly lingered in everyone's minds. This is the true power of the Lambda drive system? The current scene had surpassed the moment when the M9's 76mm sniper rifle was deflected. It was more shocking and unbelievable. But no matter how unbelievable everyone was, the truth was still the truth. The main screen in the command hall showed the scene of devastation and destruction. Every time one glanced at the scene, it was not difficult to see the targets and bunkers that were torn apart by the power of the Lambda drive system. Knight, report the situation. Teresa gently exhaled and asked Ray Minkai. I feel good. There is nothing wrong with the body. In addition, the Lambda drive system of the crossbow is undergoing a self-check. Ray Minkai also breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he did not need to be looked down upon by State Zero. Knight, the Lambda drive system self-check is complete. There is no abnormality. You can continue the experiment. Ael's report sounded at the right time. No, that's it for today. Ray Minkai shook his head and then showed a bitter smile. Even if I want to continue, there are not many places on Merida Island that can be used with the crossbow. Yes. In front of the crossbow, the shooting range area used for target practice had been destroyed and could not be used again in a short period of time. Understood. Ael responded and went into standby mode in the blink of an eye. Thus, Ray Minkai's first Lambda drive system test ended. The next day, the report collected and compiled during the test yesterday was placed in front of Ray Minkai. Early in the morning, Teresa, who received the report from the Data Analysis Department, brought Kalinin directly to the door. At this time, Ray Minkai was prepared to take Mira for a tour around the island. Captain Teresa, is there a need to be in such a hurry? Ray Minkai looked helplessly at Teresa, who placed the report in front of him. Teresa's sudden attack made even Mira, who rarely expressed her emotions, feel somewhat dissatisfied. I'm sorry, Knight and Miss Mira. Because the power displayed by the Lambda drive system is too amazing, we must figure out its true colors as soon as possible. After Teresa apologized to Ray Minkai and Mira, she directly led the conversation to the Lambda drive system. Brother, I'm all right. Let's answer Captain Teresa's question first. Mira gently tugged at the corner of Ray Minkai's shirt and took the initiative to make a request. Ray Minkai had no choice but to nod. Please have a seat, Captain Teresa and Major Kalinin. What can I answer for you? Why, Knight, can you do that? According to the subsequent data analysis, this seems to be a force that is difficult to explain with modern science. After Teresa sat down, Kalinin was the first to speak. As the commander of the Western Pacific Fleet, Kalinin felt that it was necessary to understand the power of the Lambda drive system as much as possible. Why? That's just the power of the Lambda drive system. Captain, Major. Why do you think the Lambda drive system can have such power? Ray Minkai shook his head and kicked the question back to Teresa and Kalinin. Kalinin was silent. On the other hand, Teresa pondered for a few moments and voiced her opinion. The Lambda drive system seems to be a system that can transform the pilot's spiritual consciousness into physical energy. Therefore, at a critical moment, the Lambda drive system can create a screen similar to a protective force field. After saying this, Teresa glanced at Lei Minkai. It can also cause the terrible scene yesterday. I should be right about this, right? Sir Ray Minkai. Lei Minkai nodded his head, indicating that Teresa's words weren't wrong. Roughly. However, there was a crucial point here. That is, the pilot's spiritual consciousness must reach a certain threshold, otherwise, the Lambda drive system cannot be activated. Not to mention the screen that bounced back the attack and the attack. Spiritual consciousness reaches a certain threshold? Teresa and Kalinin were taken aback and fell into deep thought again. Ray Minkai's statement was something that Teresa and Kalinin had never heard of. Even Teresa herself only knew a little about the Lambda drive system, let alone how to skillfully use the Lambda drive system. In other words, to be able to skillfully use the Lambda drive system, some special pilots must be used? Teresa slowly furrowed her brows and spoke of her speculation with some uncertainty. For example, some people who are mentally unstable or have extremely terrifying mental paranoid tendencies to some extent. Yes. As expected of Captain Teresa. At present, no. Suddenly, Ray Minkai's voice stopped. There was a meaningful smile on his face. In A21, perhaps someone has already noticed this characteristic and has already prepared the corresponding pilot and the body equipped with the Lambda drive system. What? The information that Ray Minkai suddenly said shocked Teresa and Kalinin. They never thought that Ray Minkai would suddenly say such a crucial piece of information at this time. It had to be known that in the previous exchange, it was actually a process of bargaining. Lei Minkai's information was revealed bit by bit like toothpaste being squeezed out of toothpaste, causing Teresa to exhaust a lot of brain cells. Is A21 going to launch an attack? Kalinin's reaction was the fastest, and he immediately understood what was behind the information that Ray Minkai threw out. Major, can you summarize and analyze the information we can currently collect related to A21? Teresa did not hesitate to believe Ray Minkai's words. As far as the current situation was concerned, Ray Minkai, who joined the Son of Dan new under the code name Knight, had already proven his ability. In this regard, Teresa also gave Ray Minkai quite a lot of trust, just like the other ship. Yes, Sir Colonel. Now, I'll immediately ask someone to organize the summary. But just as Kalinin turned around and left, Ray Minkai suddenly called out to Kalinin. Major, wait a moment. I may have a piece of information here that can help Captain Teresa, and you, Major. Information? Teresa was taken aback for a moment, then she showed a playful smile. It seems that our Sir Knight really knows everything. When we are in a difficult situation, he can always come up with a solution to the current predicament. Teresa's praise made Ray Minkai secretly smile bitterly. If it weren't for the fact that he was born on another Earth with all kinds of machine warfare works, he would have fallen into the same predicament as Teresa. Jewel Mountain Ponder. While secretly smiling bitterly, Ray Minkai said a name. Jewel Mountain Ponder? Is this the true face of A21? Teresa repeated the name. No. It should be just a pilot of a certain AS model. And this Jewel Mountain Ponder may be the mentally abnormal person that Captain Teresa speculated. As soon as Ray Minkai spoke, Teresa and Kalinin immediately reacted. Lambda drive system. Knight, you mean that A21 wants to use the body equipped with the Lambda drive system to attack in the city? Kalinin's face instantly became solemn. If it was as he speculated, According to the Lambda drive system performance shown by the crossbow, it would undoubtedly be an indiscriminate and overwhelming massacre. Yes. In any case, the advice I can give now is to arrange for people to pay attention to the customs of the East Asian countries as soon as possible. As long as we can capture Jewel Mountain Ponder for the first time, then A21 hiding in the dark will inevitably make a move and try to take back Jewel Mountain Ponder. Lure the snake out of the hole? Teresa muttered this word, but she didn't dare to expect too much from this plan. After all, in her opinion, A21, which had shown its previous style of treating human life as grass, would not put a pilot in such a high position. Yes. As said before, if Jewel Mountain Ponder is really the pilot of the AS equipped with the Lambda drive system, then his importance is far beyond the general pilot. Ray Minkai knew what Teresa was thinking and reminded her. For the Lambda drive system that they already had but didn't know much about, Teresa and others naturally didn't know how important it was to have a pilot who could skillfully use the Lambda drive system. Colonel, if you don't mind, we may start to assign tasks. After all, we don't know which country A21 will appear in. Okay. Major Kalinin, come with me. Teresa nodded, stood up, and raised her hand to salute Ray Minkai and Mira. She apologized again and thanked them. I'm very sorry. I've disturbed your time. In addition, I'm grateful for the information provided by Ray Minkai. Today, Sir Lay Minkai and Miss Mira, please relax as much as you like. I still have that bit of authority. Just as Teresa turned around and was about to leave with Kalinin, Ray Minkai suddenly stopped Kalinin. Major, I don't know if you know the name Wu Zhizheng? Kalinin stopped and replied with a slightly puzzled expression. No. I don't know him. Is there a problem? Knight. He used to be a mercenary wandering in war-torn places. After returning to China, he engaged in charity work. And the name of this charity is A21. At this moment it was Teresa's turn to stop. This was something that Ray Minkai never mentioned in the previous exchange of information. A 21's original identity is a charity? A shell? No. Ray Minkai shook his head. Maybe it's a real charity. But his approach is a bit extreme. In the beginning, A21 specially recruited delinquents who had committed crimes and threw them on an uninhabited island, where they were taught fighting skills and survival skills in a Spartan way. Isn't this creating soldiers? Teresa said subconsciously. No. Colonel, this is not creating soldiers. This is just teaching the skills to survive in this world to these delinquents who have been abandoned by society. Kalinin, who was well versed in the ways of the world, immediately understood why Ray Minkai mentioned this matter. Knight, I understand what you mean. But in the face of the threat of the entire city's imminent destruction, I may not have much choice. But Ray Minkai shook his head slightly. No. Major, I'm just telling you what I know. What's more, if a battle breaks out, the person standing on the front line should be me. Humph. What a cunning little guy. Knight. Same to you. The salty sea breeze blew in their faces. In the distance, even in the middle of the night, the port was still illuminated to a certain degree. Ta, 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 behind them came the sound of feet stepping on steel plates. Then, a sharp and familiar smell came from behind, standing beside the woman named Xingnai. How rare! I didn't expect you to come here in person. Xingnai retracted his gaze from the port and fell on the long-haired, expressionless woman standing beside him. Even her eyes seemed to have lost the light of emotion that a human should have. This was the twin assassin that Jiulong raised. Cruel and ruthless. Has the mission been sent out? The long-haired woman ignored Xingnai's words and coldly inquired about the progress of the mission. Yes, it has been sent out. All that's left is to wait for the mission to meet us. That's good, Xingnai. This mission is your business. We won't interfere. But if that white mecha appears, you should know what to do. Our target is only that. Other than that, you can deal with the other matters and enemies yourself. Understood. Twin assassin. Xia Yulan, Xia Yufeng. This pair of female wolves raised by Jiulong seemed to have set their eyes on a prey. For this reason, they didn't hesitate to come here and forcibly intervene in Xingnai's mission in the name of assistance. Although Xingnai was a little unhappy, it was good to have an extra layer of protection. White Light Wing Mecha. The organization's intelligence was synchronized to a certain extent. The death of Jiulong and the appearance of the White Light Wing Mecha had spread throughout the organization almost after that sunrise, making most people drop their glasses. Will it come? White Light Wing Mecha. Xingnai thought to himself as he watched the harbor getting closer and closer as the ship approached the shore. However, before that, Xingnai would have to face the situation of Jiu Washan being detained by Ray Minkai first. Chapter 353. The test was still ongoing. This was a combat test after the previous test. Although the power displayed by Ray Minkai's crossbow was enough to shock the entire Mithril, there were still some people who had doubts about it. Therefore, the test order from the combat headquarters was passed to Teresa. Sigh. What is Uncle thinking? After seeing such a scene, do we still need to use another combat test to prove the power of the Lambda drive system? Teresa, who was standing at the port and watching the logistics personnel prepare the Son of Dan Nu, was particularly dissatisfied when she received this order. Because she knew that only on the battlefield could the power of the Lambda drive system be fully demonstrated. Previously, because of the relatively simple test at the shooting range, there were no casualties. If it was carried out according to the headquarters' intention, Teresa, who had several plans flashing in her mind, quickly shook her head. No matter what plan it was, the final result was very likely to be casualties. The power of the Lambda drive system was too strong. Captain Teresa, are you worried about the combat test order from the headquarters? Just when Teresa was distressed by this order, Ray Minkai's voice sounded. Teresa looked back and found that Ray Minkai and Richard were here together. Knight? And Richard is here too? Richard, who was standing next to Ray Minkai, immediately stood at attention and saluted. Yes, Captain. In fact, I have already communicated with Knight about the combat test mission just now. Knight seems to have another opinion. Opinion? Teresa blinked and looked at Ray Minkai. Yes. Ray Minkai nodded and organized his words. In fact, Captain Teresa already knows that A-21 is about to launch an attack, so they can be used as opponents in the combat test. A-21. Teresa frowned and instantly guessed Ray Minkai's meaning. Knight, you want the headquarters to see a battle between the Lambda drive system? Ray Minkai nodded. No. That was impossible. According to the intelligence, the A-21 will probably launch an attack in a big city. If there is a battle between two airframes with the same Lambda drive system at that time, it will cause a lot of casualties in the city. It will even cause casualties to the people who can't retreat in time. When Teresa saw Ray Minkai readily admit that he was trying to make the two bodies equipped with the Lambda drive system fight, she was the first to disagree. Cough cough. Captain, calm down. Looking at Teresa, who immediately denied it, Richard knew that it was time for him to speak up. Richard? Teresa was stunned for a moment before she calmed down. Richard, tell me the reason between you and the Knight. Do you agree with Knight's suggestion? Richard nodded slowly. Yes, Captain. I agree with the Knight's proposal. Because before this, our Mithril people have already captured the target Jiu Washan. He's currently being detained in our facility. But before Richard finished speaking, the smart Teresa had already guessed what Richard was about to say. Wait, Richard. You mean you want to use Jiu Washan as bait to attract the enemy to the area we chose to fight? Yes and no. It was not Richard who answered, but Ray Minkai. Lei Ming calmly met Teresa's gaze and said slowly, Don't worry. In fact, I already know what the A-21 is relying on to launch the attack. It's an AS far beyond everyone's imagination. An AS far beyond everyone's imagination? Teresa repeated this sentence, then looked sharply at Ray Minkai. We already know that the A-21 may be equipped with the Lambda drive system. But based on this information, are we going to adopt such a risky plan? If Jiwashan is not as important as we think, the A-21 may launch an attack in advance when we move Jiwashan. That will depend on the clever Captain Teresa. To Teresa's surprise, Ray Minkai did not refute, nor did he explain further. Instead, he pushed everything to her side. Knight you? Ray Minkai waved his hand and frankly said, That's right, Captain. Now I'm just a soldier. When it comes to the combat plan, I'll leave it to you, Captain Teresa. After he finished speaking, Ray Minkai turned around and left in a carefree manner in front of the dumbfounded Teresa. Knight, who the hell are you? After Ray Minkai left, Teresa reacted and shouted at Ray Minkai's back uncontrollably. The information that was squeezed out like toothpaste. Ray Minkai, who shirked responsibility at the critical moment, made Teresa suddenly feel angry. Ahem. Captain, pay attention to your image. Richard's reminder always sounded at the right time. Richard, shouldn't we fire the knight? Teresa took a deep breath and calmed herself down before saying, That's right, the knight. Anyway, we have collected a lot of information about the Lambda drive system. It should be enough for the R&D department to carry out the next step of research. Richard coughed again. I'm afraid not, Captain. If we fire Knight at this time, we will lose the key person who can use the crossbow and the Lambda drive system. He's just a pilot. Then, what about Sergeant Xiangliang Sosuke? Teresa said a name subconsciously, a name that made Richard frown. In Richard's view, Xiangliang Sosuke was not worthy of Teresa's good impression of him. Captain, looking at our mithril, I'm afraid there is no one else who can have a deep understanding of the Lambda drive system like Ray Minkai and Knight, and can even freely control the Lambda drive system. Especially the latter, on the eve of the operation on A-21, the pilot who can freely control the Lambda drive system is even more important. Richard took a deep breath and continued, with all due respect, Captain, Sergeant Xiangliang Sosuke's combat power and AS control ability are trustworthy. But as the latest weapon system, the Lambda drive system, I'm afraid it can't be mastered overnight. Richard's reason was almost impeccable. The power of the Lambda drive system was already known by Mithril. But looking at the entire group of pilots owned by Mithril, only Ray Minkai could freely control the Lambda drive system. This was a shameful but incomparably realistic truth. In desperation, Teresa could only sigh. That's true, Richard. Then, let's start the battle plan. Under the circumstances of reducing casualties, lead the enemy to the battle area we arranged, Teresa said as she habitually pinched her braid. But before that, there is one more thing we must do. That is, at the right time, release Jewel Mountain without leaving a trace and guide the enemy to act according to the script we wrote. Can you do it, Richard? Yes, Captain. There is no mission that we can't complete. Richard replied sonorously. In response, Teresa showed a confident smile. That's true. Knight, let's wait and see. Teresa made up her mind and began to carry out the mission of the combat headquarters. And Ray Minkai, who slightly provoked Teresa, followed the original arrangement and left Merida Island with Mira and returned to their original residence. This was not as simple as letting Mira return to her daily life. It was a decision made to fulfill Myra's request. As the door of Ray Minkai and Myra's room slowly opened, an old man in a butler uniform with meticulously combed silver hair stood at the door. He bowed to Ray Minkai and Mira standing there to welcome their return. Sorry for the wait, Your Excellency Ray Minkai, Miss Mira. From today onwards, I will serve the two of you for a period of time. During this period of time, please order me to serve you to your heart's content. This was the old butler, Jack, who had been following Mallory. His arrival was also one of the conditions that Ray Minkai agreed to become a crew member on the Son of Dan's Slave. The other condition was the supercomputing array behind Jack that filled the entire room. This was an important tool that allowed Mira to design the new body that Ray Minkai needed in the shortest time possible. Miss Mira, please look. This is the supercomputing array that we can prepare in the shortest time possible under the orders of the Master. In order to complete the installation of this supercomputing array, we have already bought this apartment building. You bought it? Jack's calm tone surprised Ray Minkai a little. He didn't expect Mallory to be so generous when it came to redeeming his promise. He actually bought the entire apartment building overnight just to install the supercomputing array. Yes. We can't let the two of you lose your place after the supercomputing array is installed. After Jack bowed slightly, he raised his right hand and gestured to the door. Two masters, please follow me. Your accommodations have already been prepared. Under the lead of Jack, Ray Minkai and Mira walked to the room on the upper floor. This was the new residence of Ray Minkai and Mira. Mira carefully stepped on the luxurious red carpet on the ground and walked into the room. Ray Minkai said softly, Jack, please pass my thanks to Sir Mallory. He is very considerate. No. The Master said before that it is his honor to solve a problem for a friend. Jack's attitude was very respectful. Friend? After Ray Minkai said silently, he smiled. Yes. This was one of the effects of showing one's strength. Although Ray Minkai had previously used the condition of becoming one of the sons of the pill slaves as a condition of the deal, in reality, Mallory, who had converted the entire apartment building into a supercomputing array, had probably forgotten this condition. Sir Ray Minkai, if you are satisfied with this, then tomorrow there will be a group of 100 technical personnel selected from various fields coming to report. They will be part of Miss Myra's upcoming body development plan. Keenly aware that Ray Minkai was very satisfied with this arrangement, Jack struck while the iron was hot and said the next arrangement. 100 technical personnel? Ray Minkai raised his eyebrows, but he was not surprised. He knew that compared to this apartment building that was converted into a supercomputing array in a short period of time, this group of 100 technical personnel was probably Mallory's real purpose. Sure enough, the older the ginger, the spicier. But, so what if it was? Yes. Sir Ray Minkai. Jack felt that Ray Minkai was strange, but he didn't say anything. He just silently waited for Ray Minkai's decision. Very good. Give my thanks to Sir Mallory, Jack. In the next period of time, I will have a mission to solve. At that time, Myra's daily life will be in your hands. Yes. Then, please allow me to prepare dinner for the two of you first. Go, Jack. Yes. Sir Ray Minkai. Jack's arrival temporarily freed Ray Minkai. After all, in terms of safety, he could let the White Cat Zero protect Mira, but this white cat that was arrogant from time to time did not know how to take care of people. On the contrary, it was more like someone else to take care of it. Mira. Tomorrow, there will be a technical team to assist you in completing the body design. Are there any problems? If you think of anything, you can tell me. I will solve it for you immediately. Sitting on the sofa, watching Mira swiping the tablet that Ray Minkai gave her, Ray Minkai asked, 100 people? 100 people? Mira put down the tablet, but her face uncontrollably showed a trace of fear. But in the end, Mira still mustered up the courage and made up her mind to face the fear left after the inhumane treatment. I have no problem. I will work hard, brother. Ray Minkai showed a gentle smile that could make Mira feel at ease. Then Ray Minkai reached out and touched Myra's head. Don't worry. State Zero will accompany you. Me? Why is it me again? Since the moment they entered the new residence, The white cat Zero had been lying on top of the fridge. When it heard Ray Minkai's words, it suddenly raised its head and looked at Ray Minkai. It seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied. The situation is as such. State Zero, Mira is in your hands. White cat Zero stared at Ray Minkai for a while, then closed its eyes and lay back down. Up to you. But, in the next battle, do you still plan to pilot Lancelot? With that system, there should be more and more bodies equipped with the Lambda Drive system. Lancelot may not be able to withstand the next battle. What White Cat Zero said was the truth. But Ray Minkai already had a countermeasure. Don't worry. Although this decision is somewhat unfair to someone, I have already found a body that can replace Lancelot. Ray Minkai said apologetically, but there was a playful smile on his face. White Cat Zero opened its eyes slightly and glanced at Ray Minkai. Body? Is it the body equipped with the Lambda Drive system? The name seems to be Crossbow? Forget it. Since you have already made the decision, then I will stay by Myra's side. Chapter 354. In the quiet woods, dark figures suddenly flashed through. These figures shuttling through the woods were not entering the woods for fun in the middle of the night to test their courage. Instead, they were fully armed soldiers wearing special equipment for infiltration operations. They were the messengers of death who infiltrated the woods and prepared to start a massacre. These soldiers sneaked all the way and soon came to a villa in the depths of the woods. Their goal was this villa. Or perhaps it was someone who was imprisoned in this villa. And these soldiers who were preparing to launch a surprise attack didn't know that their every move had been clearly seen by various hidden cameras in the woods. They really came. Behind these cameras, a clear voice rang out. Yes, Sir Colonel. They really came. Then, the plan can be launched. As the lights turned on, Kalinen's figure also appeared. On his right side, the girl sitting on the sofa, Teresa. However, at this time, Teresa's eyes fell on the young man standing on the other side. Knight, do you think the operation can be completed? The young man who was asked by Teresa was Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai smiled and raised his hand to point to the array diagram displayed on the right side of the screen. If the operation can't be successful, then the effort spent by Mithril this time will be in vain. Teresa didn't need to look to know what Ray Minkai was referring to. In order to ensure that the enemy's attention was attracted while not being seen through by the enemy, Teresa spent a lot of effort to get such a set of Stronghold unmanned automatic defense system that was still in the experimental stage from the headquarters. This was a set of defense system that could be used to defend the Stronghold under a preset defense program. According to the original idea of Mithril's designers, this was a defense system used by the headquarters and the combat headquarters. It was just that because of the high price and the cumbersome production process, it had been helplessly shelved in the laboratory. Now, in order to reduce casualties and make this scene more realistic, Teresa could be said to have put in a lot of effort. Sir Colonel, this automatic defense system can complete the mission. However, I'm afraid we still need to pay attention to Jewel Mountain. After all, compared to the soldiers outside, Jiwushan can be considered to have come into close contact with our members. Kalinin pointed out the only flaw in the current plan. However, Ray Minkai had a different opinion. Major, after pondering for a long time on my mountain, there is nothing to worry about. In the end, he was just a pilot. According to his current emotional state, he shouldn't be able to notice our plan. Knight, do not underestimate anyone. Teresa expressed her dissatisfaction with Ray Minkai's opinion. Although Wishan has been thinking about redebugging the Lambda Drive system for a long time, I think he will notice our plan at some point. In this regard, Ray Minkai didn't express any objection or approval. He just nodded silently and looked at the screen, watching the performance of the soldiers who had launched the surprise attack. Who knew that Ray Minkai's seemingly admission, but in fact, he was just avoiding the question, made Teresa feel a little dissatisfied. "Colonel, they're starting." Kalinin was always able to pull Teresa's attention back to the proper role at a critical moment. The moment the sound speaker played the first gunshot from around the villa, Kalinin completed this task. Da-da-da-da-da. Under the surveillance of various miniature cameras hidden in the corners, the moment these fully armed soldiers poked their heads out, they were ruthlessly shot by the Gatling guns installed on the fences and houses. The fierce firepower suddenly made everyone sitting in front of the screen and watching the situation around the villa sweat. This was the first time this defense system showed its powerful firepower outside the laboratory. In just a short moment, the momentum of the group of soldiers was pushed back, and they couldn't even raise their heads. As the person who brought this automatic defense system, Teresa was a little confused. This sudden powerful firepower seemed to have exceeded the limit of the guarantee that the designers gave her. "Kalinin, in the face of this firepower, will you choose to retreat?" Teresa suddenly felt that she might have been too ruthless. No. It is because of this firepower that the enemy will be convinced that this is not a trick to lure the enemy. Before Kalinin's words fell, Ray Minkai took over this topic. "Captain Teresa, a 21 is not a superficial organization that only sends soldiers to save people." Immediately afterward, as soon as Ray Minkai's voice fell, a fire suddenly appeared on the screen. Under everyone's gaze, it passed through the woods and accurately blew up the Gatling gun installed on the wall. As the enemy actually brought AS into the territory of this country? The moment the barbarians that looked very similar to frogs appeared, Teresa knew that the enemy really bit the bait as Kalinin and Ray Minkai expected. "It seems that this time I will be scolded badly by Uncle. This is an expensive experimental system." Teresa, who figured out the key point, said dejectedly, but there was a smug smile on the corner of her mouth. The appearance of the barbarians undoubtedly symbolized that the expensive automatic stronghold defense system could no longer block the enemy outside the villa. As the barbarians raised their guns or raised their enlarged fist-like rocket launchers and fired one after another, the villa suddenly ignited into a pile of flames. In the midst of this fire, the soldiers who were previously suppressed to the point of not being able to lift their heads formed a commando formation and rushed into the villa. "Major, let the people in the villa gradually withdraw. If we continue to hold on like this, there will be casualties." Seeing this, Ray Minkai made a suggestion. That's true. When the barbarians appeared, we could also cancel the means we prepared in advance. Now, with the automatic defense system, the enemy should no longer suspect that the villa is bait. Kalinin nodded and then issued an order to gradually withdraw the remaining personnel. Of course, before that, they still had to put on a show in front of Jewel Mountain. However, Ray Minkai didn't need to worry about this. After all, everyone in Mithril was a talent. Boom! Under the barbarians' attack, the villa quickly turned into ruins full of bullet holes. Fortunately, it seemed that because they wanted to save Jewel Mountain, these soldiers didn't dare to destroy the villa too much. Instead, they quickly rescued Jewel Mountain and disappeared into the dark forest under the cover of the barbarians. The first step of the plan is complete. Kalinin, let people clean up the battlefield. Also, see if the system can be recycled. Yes, Colonel. Kalinin knew that Teresa was very distressed about the system, so he personally ordered people to find out the loss as soon as possible. Knight, I have already paved the way for you. The next step is up to you. Don't let our expensive defense system be sacrificed in vain. Teresa looked at Ray Minkai with a calm gaze as if she was giving an order. Understood. As long as the evacuation of the estimated area is done, then Captain Teresa, you don't need to worry about anything. Then, let's wait and see. Night. In the forest, under the protection of the barbarians, the soldiers who rescued Jewel Mountain boarded the pre-prepared off-road vehicle and quickly retreated along the pre-prepared escape route under the roar of the engine. sister. Jewel Mountain, who took the satellite computer from the soldier next to her, called out softly. There was a long silence on the other side of the satellite phone. It was only until the off-road vehicle rushed out of the forest and landed on the road that a voice came from the other side of the satellite phone. Mountain. When we get back, I'll deal with you. Then, the satellite phone hung up. Jewel Mountain held the satellite phone that she had lost contact with in a daze and didn't know what to do. On the other side of the satellite phone, Xing Nai's mood wasn't as calm as the quiet port, but rather, it set off waves of emotions. Before contacting Jewel Mountain, the soldiers reported the situation at the villa to her. Although she believed that this was a trap laid by the enemy to prevent Jewel Mountain from escaping, Xing Nai vaguely had an indescribable feeling. As if, after paying the price of dozens of soldiers, and even barbarians on the way, the rescued Jewel Mountain was not the Jewel Mountain that Xing Nai imagined. Xing Nai shook her head slightly against the sea breeze. No. I shouldn't think about this. Now, what I should do is to let Mountain return to the behemoth, and then fulfill our wish. In the darkness, a pair of eyes hidden in the shadows quietly wandered around the port, as if looking for something. Yours too, this is yours 6. The port is normal, and the target fleet has not been found for the time being. As one of the key factors in this operation, before the operation began, Kurlutz was suggested by Ray Minkai to lurk at the highest point that could monitor the entire port in advance, waiting for a certain moment to arrive. Yours 6. Yours 2 received. Continue to wait for the opportunity. I just received the signal from the bait. The enemy has bitten the bait. All that's left is to wait for the enemy to surface. As the captain of Kurlutz and Sosuke Xiangliang, Melissa naturally would not miss this mission. She had already changed into a pilot suit and stood in front of her M9. She held a pair of binoculars and patrolled the surroundings of the port over and over again, for fear of missing any details. Yours 7. How's the situation on your side? Is the water still cold? Your 2. Yours 7 reporting no abnormalities. The water temperature is still within the range that the M9 can adapt to. Sosuke Xiangliang was not piloting a crossbow, but an M9. After Ray Minkai became the test pilot of the crossbow, Sosuke Xiangliang, who should have already painted his own unique symbol on the crossbow, was still operating the M9. And his position was at the exit of the port, quietly monitoring the movements of all the surrounding ships. That's good. Yours 7, then take your time to soak in the bath. Yours 6, it's about time. Get ready. Yes, Sister Mao. As Kurlutz responded, her gaze became even sharper. In the distance, a beam of high beam light lit up from the end of the road outside the port, causing the eyes of both parties who had been waiting for a long time to light up. You're back. Ponder. Do your best to complete your mission. After confirming that this was the convoy that brought Kawosan Ponder back, Xing Nai finally showed a satisfied smile. However, as the convoy approached from afar and drove to the side of the cargo ship that Xing Nai was on, a flash of fire pierced through the dark sky. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the flash of fire blew away the off-road vehicle behind them. As it rolled, it threw the soldier covered in flames out of the off-road vehicle into the air. Ah! As the tragic howl of pain rolled endlessly in the soaring flames, Kawosan Ponder's figure also rushed out of the off-road vehicle that was not attacked and looked at Xing Nai with shame. Sister. I'm sorry. I brought the enemy. At this point, no matter how slow Kawosan Ponder was, he already realized that the battle that made many soldiers die to save him was just a pretense. But, in the flickering flames of the off-road vehicle, the expressionless Xing Nai gave Kawosan Ponder a hard slap in the face. Looking at Kawosan Ponder's rapidly swollen cheek, Xing Nai said coldly, "What are you waiting for? The enemy is just bluffing. Their goal is probably the behemoth." Feeling the burning pain on his face, Kawosan Ponder actually replied with joy. Is that so? Then, sister, let the enemy see the behemoth with his own eyes. Go. Ponder. Fulfill our dreams. Yes, sister. Everything that happened between Xing Nai and Kawosan Ponder was clearly seen by Kurlutz through the sniping scope. What a cold beauty! But I'm sorry. If it wasn't for the order, I'm afraid that shot would have sent you to heaven. Yours 6. Get ready. After the monster appears, immediately attract its attention and lead it to the area where yours 7 and I are. The moment Kurlutz fired the first shot, Melissa knew that the battle had already begun. Understood. Sister Mao. Don't worry, leave it to me. I'll let the prey find you. Next, Melissa and Sagara Sosuke must, with Kurlutz's assistance, attract the enemy's AS to the pre-prepared arena and let Strongbow fight it out with the Lambda drive system. There, Ray Minkai and Strongbow had already been waiting for a long time. Chapter 355. Under the night sky, in the flickering light of the fire, a giant hand that could crush an M9 tore the cargo ship docked at the port apart from the inside out. The freighter let out a painful roar as it was torn apart. A giant monster at least 5 times the size of an M9 viciously stomped on the freighter. It waved its terrifying giant hand and tore the freighter apart. Amid the splashes of water, it landed heavily on the ground of the port. Under the splashing water from the giant monster, the flames were quickly extinguished, revealing the wreckage of the off-road vehicle destroyed by the flames. The behemoth is activated. When the giant monster was activated, it deliberately avoided the position where Senai was standing. Under Senai's watch, it stepped onto the port step by step and prepared to walk into the depths of the city. Boom! Boom! Although the giant body that weighed thousands of tons successfully operated with the help of the Lambda drive system, its astonishing weight could still cause a huge commotion with each move. With every step the behemoth took, it mercilessly destroyed and flattened the warehouses in front of it. Wherever it passed, everything turned into a mess. Hey! Is this the objective of our mission? No matter how you look at it, it's not something we can fight against. The moment the behemoth appeared, Cruz immediately observed its appearance through the sniper scope. At the same time, Cruz was also blinded by the behemoth's ridiculously large body that weighed thousands of tons. I'm afraid that's the case. Yours 6, get to work. According to Plan A, first use your sniper cannon to attract the attention of this monster and lure it away from the route to the city. Melissa, who was also shocked by the size of the behemoth, immediately recovered and began to plan the next step. Yours 7. Report your position. Yours 2. I'm now next to the warehouse and monitoring the group that activated the behemoth. Based on the visual results, that woman seems to be the leader of this attack. Xiangliang Zongjie immediately left his original position the moment the giant beast started moving. He immediately moved to a position as close as possible to monitor Xing Nai and the others. Moreover, due to the huge commotion caused by the giant beast's activation, the movement of Xiangliang Sosuke's M9 was coincidentally covered by the giant beast's movement. Yours 2. For now, don't worry about that woman. Our mission is to kill that monster. Melissa very decisively ordered Xiangliang Sosuke to give up on Xingnai and focus on dealing with the enormous pressure brought about by the giant beast's landing. Understood. Bang. In the distance, the M9 driven by Cruz locked onto the giant beast and instantly fired a shot at the giant beast's chest. Flames flashed past the muzzle of the 76mm sniper rifle as it flew over the port and headed straight for its target. However, just as the bullet was about to hit the giant beast, a scene that Cruz was very familiar with appeared. Cruz's pupils shrank. He did not even have time to utter another word before he instinctively controlled his beloved machine to roll on the ground. The next moment, a white light suddenly lit up in front of the giant beast. The 76mm sniper rifle bullet fired by the M9 actually retreated at an even faster speed. In the midst of the tearing sound of the wind, it hit the position where the M9 was just a second ago. Boom! The violent explosion shocked Cruz. In the flickering flames, Cruz opened the communication channel with his shock still lingering. Notify yours 2 and yours 7. The pilot of this monster will probably be as familiar with using the Lambda drive system as Knight. Pay attention to your attack range. Roger. Yours 6. Shift the sniper position. I'll attack with yours 7. If the Knight's information is correct, then when we distract the monster's attention, your opportunity should appear. Melissa naturally saw the scene of Cruz's attack being reflected. Thus, the decisive Melissa immediately moved on to the next plan. Roger. In the previous test, Cruz had experienced the power of the Lambda drive system used by Ray Minkai. Therefore, he was not shocked by the giant beast's ability to easily reflect his attack. What an enviable power! On the contrary, this guy adjusted his state slightly and immediately began to move on to the next step. Yours 2. Give the order. While Melissa and Cruz were talking, Sosuke Xiangliang had already quickly met up with Melissa. Yours 7. Don't be nervous. Our mission is not to kill this monster. It's to lead it into our ambush. Melissa smiled lightly and said in a seemingly relaxed manner. Roger. However, Sosuke Xiangliang did not know how to keep up with Melissa's footsteps. Forget it. Yours 6. Move faster. It's exhilarating. Sister Mao. Thus, Melissa and Sagara Sosuke's M9S attacked the behemoth that was advancing toward the city from both sides. The appearance of the two M9S made Xingnai, who had retreated to a safe position, frown. Their reaction speed is too fast. The next moment, Xingnai's pupils suddenly contracted. Oh no! We've been tricked. Thinking of this, Xingnai snatched the communication device from the soldier next to him and tried to order the giant beast to retreat. However, the moment he took the communication device, Xingnai stopped all actions. Did you notice? Xingnai. A cold and familiar voice sounded from behind Xingnai. It was the Gemini. Ever since Jewel Mountain had been captured, the twins had kept their promise and hadn't interfered with Xingnai's group's actions. It was only now that Xingnai discovered that Jewel Mountain had been captured as bait that the twins reappeared beside Xingnai. Xia Yulan, Xia Yufeng. From the beginning, did you know that Jewel Mountain was the bait? Xingnai squeezed the communication device tightly and looked at the Gemini standing beside her. No. We didn't know about these things. However, we know that the person who killed our teacher is no fool. The Gemini's sister, Xia Yufeng, sneered as she stared coldly at the M9 that was continuously attacking the giant beast. It was not difficult to see that the two M9s were probably aware of the existence of the Lambda drive system and had some understanding of it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to launch an effective attack to restrain the giant beast while maintaining a certain distance from it. This was not an opponent that the 9 dragons and the Gemini that were equipped with the Lambda drive system could compare to. The Gemini's emotionless expression and cold tone made Xingnai clench her teeth, but in the end, she did not order the retreat. The Vulcan cannon on the head of the behemoth roared and fired a torrent of furious bullets at Xiangliang Sosuke's M9. Xiangliang Sosuke remained calm. He was not frightened by the ferocious firepower of the almighty beast. Instead, he nimbly maneuvered his M9 around the almighty beast, using the surrounding warehouses as cover. Whenever he saw an opportunity, he would launch a counterattack. However, the M9's attack was still blocked by the invisible screen in front of the giant beast. It's just a feeble struggle. The combination of the giant beast and me is invincible. No matter how many ASs there are, it's just a futile struggle. Sitting in the giant beast's cockpit, Jewel Mountain looked angrily at the M9 that continued to attack even in the face of the giant beast's lambda drive system. During the previous detention, even though the Mithril people didn't treat Kowo Yamamoto unfairly other than extracting his blood for testing purposes, it was enough to make him hate Kowo Yamamoto, who had a paranoid personality and extreme mentality. Especially after meeting up with Xing Nai and being slapped in the face. Buzz. Amidst the deafening roar, the giant beast raised its hand high enough to crush an M9 and viciously slammed it down on Xiangliang Sosuke's M9. Yours 7, be careful. Boom! The terrifying slap not only smashed the warehouse in front of the giant beast into pieces, but it also set off a hurricane that flipped the M9 to the ground. I'm fine. Yours too. Xiangliang Sosuke shook his head vigorously, glanced at the M9's real-time body monitoring program, and said, according to the current situation, it may be difficult to lure the giant beast into our ambush. No matter how difficult it is, we have to complete it. Otherwise, if we continue to fight here, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of trouble. Melissa knew the difficulty Xiangliang Sosuke mentioned, but they had no choice but to complete this mission. At this moment, Cruz's attack came again. This time, Kurlutz focused on choosing a position where he could snipe the weakness behind the giant beast. Night. I hope your information is correct. Looking at the behemoth in the center, Cruz pulled the trigger. Bang! The 76mm sniper rifle's bullet pierced through the air. It accurately hit the back of the giant beast. During this time, it was not blocked by the invisible screen. Boom! The moment the 76mm sniper rifle's bullet hit the back of the giant beast, it set off an explosion. What? The weakness of the lambda drive system was discovered? Xing Nai's expression froze. The Gemini standing behind him had an even colder expression. For them, this was not a shocking discovery. An existence that could kill their teacher, 9 dragons, would definitely know about the existence of this weakness. However, when the speculation turned into reality, the hatred in the Gemini's heart became even more intense. Yulan. Xia Yufang noticed that her sister seemed to be about to turn and leave. Let's go. Xia Yulan didn't explain anything. She only said this sentence before disappearing behind the door. Xia Yufang's gaze paused on the giant beast for a few seconds before she also turned and disappeared behind the door. Not long after, a low buzzing sound came from the warehouse behind Xing Nai. The thick smoke on the back of the giant beast dissipated, revealing the blackened armor that was not damaged much. This shocked Cruz. His M9 was equipped with a 76mm sniper rifle, which could be said to be a weapon that had never failed him. Other than being powerless against the lambda drive system, there was almost no AS armor that could not be destroyed. Just how many more amazing things is this giant beast hiding? Even the 76mm sniper rifle can't break its armor. After Cruz cursed in a low voice, he immediately shifted his target to the joints of the giant beast. If I can't penetrate your armor, then I'll hit your joints. Cruz didn't believe that the giant beast's joints could be as hard as the damn armor. Bang! The 76mm sniper rifle launched another attack. However, this time, it was interrupted by an accident. What? Cruz was shocked. He subconsciously controlled the body to roll on the ground again and dodged the sudden attack from behind. A new enemy? Cruz, who dodged the attack, saw the enemy coming out of the shadows. He was suddenly stunned. It was a body that was very similar to the enemy in a battle video extracted from Lancelot's combat record. It's the same model at that time? Has it been mass-produced? Cruz remembered Ray Minkai's introduction of this body. The body was equipped with the lambda drive system, but because its heat dissipation technology was not mature enough, it was easy to overheat when using the lambda drive system, which led to the failure of the body. A white light flashed, and Cruz instinctively drove the M9 to roll on the ground again. He dodged the attack among the flying wreckage. Yours 6, emergency notification, yours 2, yours 6. There are now variables. The enemy is very likely to have a second or third body equipped with the Lambda drive system. What? Kurlutz had issued an emergency warning while dodging the attack, causing Melissa and Sagura Sosuke to be shocked. Yes, Sister Mao. Sagura. Now I'm dealing with the second body equipped with the Lambda drive system. It's the same type of body in the video submitted by Knight, Deadly Venom. Boom! Before Cruz's voice fell, an explosion directly covered Cruz's voice, leaving only the sound of the wind and rustling of the explosion. Yours 6. Report your situation. Melissa gritted her teeth and subconsciously asked Sosuke Sagura to rush to the rescue. Suddenly, Rei Minkai's voice sounded. Yours 2, continue to perform the mission with yours 7. Also remember, as long as you find the right opportunity to destroy the radiator under the feet of this behemoth, then this monster that relies on the Lambda drive system to operate will inevitably be destroyed. In the sky, there was a buzzing sound of the propellers stirring the air. It was the arrival of the helicopter with the crossbow. It turned out that when Sosuke Sagura and the others were fighting with the behemoth, Rei Minkai, who faintly sensed that something was wrong, discussed with Kalinin and Teresa, then let the helicopter carry the crossbow to the periphery of the port. As a result, Rei Minkai really saw the scene of Cruz being ambushed by Deadly Venom. Arrived at the target airspace. Prepare to release the crossbow. Knight, are you ready? After the helicopter pilot confirmed that there was no threat above the port, he asked Rei Minkai, who was sitting in the crossbow. The crossbow is normal. It can be released at any time. Understood. Begin to release the crossbow. Good luck. In the night sky, a white-painted body quietly appeared above the M9 driven by Cruz in a flash of light visible to the naked eye. Then, he raised the 58mm shotgun in his hand and fired 3 consecutive shots at Deadly Venom. Between the flames and the explosion of flying stones, Deadly Venom continuously jumped back and nimbly dodged the crossbow attack. In Deadly Venom, the short-haired girl sitting in the cockpit looked coldly at the white body that descended from the sky and blocked the M9. White guy. Is it you? The person who killed teacher. Chapter 356. In front of him was a crossbow that fell from the sky. Looking at the unfamiliar yet familiar figure, Cruz slowly breathed a sigh of relief. Although the current situation was beyond expectations, the appearance of the crossbow meant that Cruz was no longer needed to deal with the enemy that suddenly appeared. Yours 6. Can you still move? Rei Minkai's voice came from the communication device. Hey. Of course. It's just a small problem. Right now, I can still have a beautiful date with a few big sisters. After the crisis was resolved, Cruz started to flirt again. Rei Minkai was not surprised by this. Cruz Weiba. A Playboy model. Then, go snipe your target. Yours 6. Leave it to me. Understood. Then, Mr. Knight, don't be careless. Under the cover of the crossbow, Kurlutz's M9 jumped onto the roof of the warehouse that was still in good condition and ran towards the battlefield where the giant beast and Melissa were fighting. From beginning to end, Fierce Venom did not stop Cruz's M9 from leaving. Instead, he quietly confronted the crossbow. It was not until Cruz's M9 left that Fierce Venom made a move. Boom! Fierce Venom lifted his foot and stomped hard on the ground, rushing toward the crossbow like an arrow leaving the bow. At the same time, a cold light also burst out from Fierce Venom's hand and went straight to the head of the crossbow. Buzz! In an instant, the moment the cold light was about to hit the head of the crossbow, a familiar scene appeared in front of Fierce Venom's pilot. White light from all directions blocked the cold light in Fierce Venom's hand. Boom! At this moment, a layer of translucent light appeared between the crossbow and Fierce Venom at the same time and collided with each other fiercely. At this moment, the ground around the crossbow and the poison, as well as the warehouse and container wreckage that were scattered around due to the chaos of the battle, were all stirred up by an invisible force. They were all blown up into the air, and then fell heavily to the ground. This was the battle between the Lambda drive systems. Amidst the roaring explosion, amidst the splashing wreckage, crossbow, fierce venom, they jumped back at the same time, tacitly increasing the distance between them. Al. Report the situation of the Lambda drive system. When the crossbow stabilized, Ray Minkai slowly exhaled. This was Ray Minkai's first time piloting a crossbow against fierce venom, which was also equipped with the Lambda drive system. He had to master the operation of the Lambda drive system while fighting. As long as there was even the slightest mistake, the crossbow would inevitably meet the end of failure. The Lambda drive system is operating normally. There are no abnormalities. Knight. Although Al's voice was electronically synthesized, at this moment, it was very reliable. Can you win? Al. Definitely. According to Mithril's current information, the information related to vicious poison was provided by you, Knight. In other words, in Mithril, the only one who could control the outcome of a battle with vicious poison was the Knight. There is no one else. When Ray Minkai heard Al's sudden and flattering answer, he couldn't help but be stunned. Sure enough, you're more humorous than the Al I know. Definitely, Knight. But now, let's deal with the enemy in front of us first. Al. Understood. Standing in the midst of the wreckage was a lavender-painted vicious poison. He held a thick short sword in his right hand. Presumably, the cold light just now was emitted by this short sword when vicious poison waved it. In addition, Ray Minkai also noticed that there was another short sword on vicious poison's waist. There was no need to think. There was no need to guess. With such a paint job and a pair of short swords, vicious poison was probably only the sister of one of the twins, Xia Yufang, who was killed by a pervert at the end of the 4th season. Al. Detect the other party's communication channel, and after obtaining the frequency, hack into the other party's communication. Understood. It will take 60 seconds. Go and do it. 60 seconds. Vicious poison wouldn't wait for 60 seconds. The moment Al began to detect the communication channel according to Ray Minkai's instructions, vicious poison launched another attack. In the blink of an eye, vicious poison, who was holding a short sword, crossed the pile of wreckage between the crossbow and the crossbow. He casually grabbed the wreckage and threw the container wreckage in his hand towards the crossbow. Amidst the whistling sound of the wind, Lei Minkai's gaze was fixed on the wreckage of the container that was flying towards him, and then, buzz! Lambda drive system activated. An invisible wall blocked the debris of the container that was flying toward them. However, at this moment, vicious poison's figure quickly moved to the crossbow's blind spot under the cover of the container wreckage. Ray Minkai wasn't the only one who knew the weakness of the Lambda drive system. In vicious poison's cockpit, that cold and beautiful face was filled with endless killing intent. Under this killing intent, vicious poison's short sword stabbed towards the right rear of the crossbow like lightning. This place was not without the protection of the Lambda drive system. However, the short sword that stabbed towards the crossbow didn't get the expected result, but it was blocked by an unexpected hard object. As it turned out, in the instant that the short sword was about to pierce the crossbow, Lei Minkai had reacted on the spot and controlled the crossbow to raise his left hand, forcefully pushing down the hilt of the long sword at his waist. As the hilt was pressed down, the scabbard that was tilted up blocked the front of vicious poison's short sword. Bang! The moment the sound of metal clashing sounded, vicious poison quickly jumped back and opened up the distance again, but the short sword in his hand was entangled by the hook shot from under the crossbow's left wrist in midair. Knight, I have captured the other party's communication channel. Al's movements were very fast. When the crossbow and vicious poison's confrontation ended again, it completed the task given to it by Rei Minkai. Well done. Lei Minkai praised and said, "That's right. Good evening, beautiful lady." This was a test. However, rather than a test, it was better to say that he was trying to strike up a conversation. However, his words, which were almost flirtatious, drew a response from the other party. "Are you the one who killed the teacher?" The white guy. In the communication channel, the voice that responded to Rei Minkai was an extremely calm and unwavering girl's voice. No. After listening carefully, it was not without fluctuations. Lei Minkai keenly captured the hatred that was hidden in the depths of her heart. Teacher. Sure enough, as Rei Minkai guessed, the pilot sitting in the vicious poison in front of him was not anyone else, but one of the twin sisters, Xia Yufang. 9 dragons. After his speculation was confirmed, Rei Minkai also adjusted his attitude. Gemini, Xia Yufang, was an excellent AS pilot. Yes. You, who followed 9 dragons to set off wars all over the world, should know that life with death all year round will inevitably be dragged into the abyss of eternal damnation by death one day. Having said that, Rei Minkai smiled softly. Forget it. I'm not good at preaching. Moreover, you and your sister, who is now nowhere to be found, won't listen to me. So, if you want to seek revenge, just come. The one who killed 9 dragons is me. Boom! The moment Rei Minkai admitted that he was the one who killed 9 dragons, Xia Yufang's eyes erupted with a terrifying murderous intent. The vicious poison she piloted once again stepped on the ground and rushed into the sky like a cannonball. Then, under the brilliance of the Lambda drive system, the dagger in her hand slashed straight at the crossbow like a meteor. Buzz! The same light also erupted from the crossbow. The moment the dagger in the vicious poison's hand slashed at the head, the crossbow pulled out the long sword like lightning and faced it fearlessly. In the dark night. At this moment, a bright radiance once again rose between the strong crossbow and the fierce poison. Moreover, the concrete ground under the crossbow's feet was torn by countless spider webs at this moment. From the crossbow's feet, it extended to the warehouse that had been destroyed by the battle dozens of meters away. Boom! The energy that erupted from the collision between Lambda drive systems was huge and terrifying. The low buzzing sound of tearing through the air became louder and louder. When Xia Yufang saw this, she immediately wanted to take the short sword back from the crossbow, but she couldn't do it. Because with the cooperation of Rei Minkai and Al, the power of the Lambda drive system crazily gathered in the crossbow's left hand and constantly exerted pressure on Vicious Poison's short sword that was slashing at the crossbow's waist. Xia Yufang was decisive. Seeing that the short sword in Vicious Poison's left hand was about to be taken away, he immediately stabbed out the short sword in his right hand decisively, trying to besiege Wei to rescue Zhao and take back the short sword that was taken away by the crossbow. However, the moment the short sword in his right hand stabbed out, the long sword that had just been avoided by Vicious Poison followed closely behind like a shadow and accurately slashed on the short sword. Bang! The two swords collided. It was the short sword in Vicious Poison's right hand that flew out. Not good! Xia Yufang was shocked. A huge force suddenly enveloped her. It was a collision. It was the crossbow that sent the short sword in Vicious Poison's right hand flying. He suddenly raised his right leg and used his knee to hit Vicious Poison's chest, where the cockpit was located. Boom! Amid the ear-piercing sound of metal colliding, Vicious Poison flew backward. And Xia Yufang, who was in the cockpit, was even more shocked by this violent impact. But at this moment in the flickering flames, a cold light suddenly appeared and went straight to the back of the crossbow, but Rei Minkai easily avoided it. There's someone else? Xia Yulan? After confirming Xia Yufang's identity, Rei Minkai's spirit was always vigilant. He knew that the twins usually acted at the same time. They would only distribute their respective tasks according to the requirements of the mission. Now, the current situation did not allow Xia Yulan to personally take action to end it. Looking at the entire warehouse area that had fallen into a sea of fire, only the battle between as was still ongoing. Therefore, the AS driven by Xia Yulan must be hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right opportunity to launch a thunderous attack. Unfortunately, until Xia Yufang's vicious poison was knocked away by Rei Mingkai's crossbow with a knee strike, Xia Yufang was unable to create an opportunity for Xia Yulan to launch a sure kill blow. Unfortunately, I didn't let you get a good opportunity. The crossbow turned his wrist and raised his sword to point at the AS hiding behind the sea of fire, the vicious poison driven by Xia Yulan. You should be Xia Yulan, right? How? Your enemy is here. Go ahead and attack with all you've got. I'm right here. On the left was Xia Yufang's vicious poison, but on the right was another vicious poison standing behind the sea of fire and facing the crossbow. In the cockpit, a pair of eyes that were even more intense and burning than Xia Yufang's stared fixedly at the crossbow. Obviously, Rei Mingkai's provocation succeeded. Chapter 357. While the flames that soared into the sky dragged the port into the abyss of eternal damnation, it also attracted the attention of the people living around the port. However, at the beginning of the battle, the well-prepared Mithril immediately began to evacuate the alarmed citizens from the area one after another to avoid being affected by the growing commotion, especially the battle between the team led by Yuer's 2 Mao Melissa and the Behemoth. However, even so, on the roof of a building near the port, a figure was standing there silently watching the battle taking place in the port not far away. His face was covered in thick white makeup, and there was a terrifying smile painted on it, as well as a tear that slid down from the corner of his left eye. Next to this figure was a small table with a box placed on it. Hee. At the same time as the panic screams of the people who were awakened by the battle between the Behemoth and the M9, and at the same time, a slightly creepy laughter was heard from below the building. I'm so envious. Your Excellency 9 Dragons. I didn't expect a cute pet to go crazy for revenge for the death of its owner. Under the white makeup was an increasingly terrifying smile, and the slightly squinted eyes flashed with an inquisitive light. Beautiful, beautiful, really beautiful. In such a deep black, there's a faint red glow. The clown-like figure kept exclaiming. Not only was he exclaiming over the battle between the Behemoth and the M9, but he was also the Gemini who was obsessed with revenge at all costs in the fierce battle with the crossbow. Your Excellency 9 Dragons. As expected of Your Excellency 9 Dragons. You actually created such a beautiful work. I'm so envious. It's a pity that Your Excellency 9 Dragons can't see how your outstanding work emits such beautiful light. While sighing, the clown face slowly raised his right hand, stroked the box placed on the small table next to him, and softly said comforting words. But it doesn't matter. One day you'll see this beautiful scenery with your own eyes. So, now, let me enjoy how their souls are burned to ashes. Bang! The dagger that cut through the night sky was blocked by the longsword in the crossbow's hand. At the moment when the two collided, the dagger was rebounded by the explosive force from the longsword, causing the gray-painted venom to retreat several steps. Amidst the heavy footsteps, Xia Yulan, who had driven fierce venom out of the sea of fire and launched an attack, gritted her teeth and looked at the crossbow in front of her with a fierce gaze, vowing to kill it. However, his surprise attack didn't work. Instead, he suffered a hidden loss in the first exchange of blows. Fortunately, even though Xia Yulan's sneak attack did not have any effect, it bought Xia Yufang some time. Vicious Venom, who was knocked away by the crossbow, stood up again under the control of Xia Yufang, who was gradually regaining consciousness. He picked up the dagger that had fallen to the ground. Right now, 1 against 2. In a one-on-one fight, Gemini might not be Ray Minkai's opponent. However, if the Gemini relied on their innate tacit understanding to fight against Ray Minkai, they would inevitably put a lot of pressure on Ray Minkai. In fact, there was also the possibility of failure. Ow! What are our chances of winning? The lavender venom and the gray venom stood on the left and right sides of the crossbow, facing the crossbow from both sides. 60%. AL reported a number. This is really surprising. I thought we didn't even have a chance of winning the 4 cities. Ray Minkai couldn't help but smile when he heard the number reported by AL. Ray Minkai already had an impression of the strength of Gemini. If it weren't for the fact that they were targeted by a silver-haired man in the final fate of Gemini, Gemini would probably still be able to follow Nine Dragons' orders and continue to cause trouble in the world. Night. This is the conclusion drawn from the comprehensive intelligence and the combat data just now. If Knight can continue to dig deeper into the power of the Lambda drive system, the chances of winning may be increased by a little. AL's voice was very calm, and he was not affected by the tense atmosphere in front of him. Hey, is that so? Then let me wait and see. Before Ray Minkai could finish his sentence, the 2 venoms attacked at the same time. In the fierce wind that instantly stirred up, the 2 venoms that seemed to be one waved the daggers and swords in their hands and went straight to the cockpit of the crossbow. Its sharpness made it impossible for the crossbow to block the attacks of the 2 venoms at the same time. However, this was not a battle between ordinary airframes, but a battle between airframes equipped with Lambda drive systems. Buzz. The unique light of the Lambda drive system lit up again. However, this time, the 3 airframes present actually activated the power of the Lambda drive system at the same time. At this moment, it was not a battle between swords and sabers, but a competition between Lambda drive systems. Is that all you can do? The Gemini Venom swords and sabers were filled with violent power, constantly attacking the wall that wrapped around the crossbow. Once again. But it was unable to break through the defensive wall forged by the Lambda drive system of the crossbow. On the contrary, in the violent storm caused by the Gemini Venom, Ray Minkai's eyes immediately caught the flaw of the Gemini Venom. It was Xia Yufang. In this seemingly perfect tacit attack, there was a faint flaw. This was the flaw caused by Xia Yufang's attack when she was knocked down by Ray Minkai in one fell swoop during the battle between Xia Yufang and Ray Minkai. The knee strike of the strong crossbow had a powerful destructive power. Even when she was attacked, Xia Yufang's subconscious defensive impulse triggered the protection mechanism of the Venom's Lambda drive system. However, due to the sudden attack of the strong crossbow, both Xia Yufang and the Venom were slightly injured. Under normal circumstances, such an insignificant wound wouldn't have caused any fatal flaws in his defense. But at this moment, in the cooperation with her sister Xia Yulan, it unexpectedly became a discordant voice in the perfect tacit understanding between the two. Gemini had already discovered this point. In fact, Xia Yulan even subconsciously took the initiative to cooperate with her sister Xia Yufang's movements and attacked the strong crossbow. However, Lei Minkai had already grasped this slight flaw long ago. Opportunity! Ray Minkai moved his left hand and controlled the strong crossbow to stretch out his left hand. He pulled out the 57mm shotgun that had been placed behind his waist and fired a fatal blow at the lavender venom driven by Xia Yufang. Be careful! Xia Yulan's pupils shrank suddenly, and she subconsciously issued a warning, but it was too late. Due to the dazzling light caused by the collision between Lambda drive systems, Xia Yufang was not able to discover the strong crossbow's movement in time like Xia Yulan. The bullet shot from the 57mm shotgun rushed out of the barrel at this moment, and almost at the same time, it hit the wall caused by the Lambda drive system of the Venom. Then, it melted the wall like ice and snow, and under Xia Yufang's gaze, it went straight to the chest of the Venom. Boom! There was an explosion. It was the venom driven by Xia Yufang that flew backward again. This time, Xia Yufang's venom was already shrouded in billowing smoke and flames. There was no possibility of it rising again. Sister! Xia Yulan's emotions instantly exploded when Xia Yufang's venom was blown away. The short knife. The venom she drove frantically waved the short knife and slashed at the crossbow again and again. During the attack, it gradually lost its previous order. At this moment, Xia Yulan seemed to have transformed into a berserker-like existence. She crazily faced the enemy in front of her. In Xia Yulan's eyes, it was an enemy that must be killed and must die. Perhaps it was a coincidence. Or perhaps it was inevitable. At the moment when Xia Yulan fell into madness, the lambda drive system of the venom burst out with even more powerful and terrifying power than before, multiplying the pressure faced by the strong crossbow. Warning! Warning! The enemy's lambda drive system has detected an abnormal situation. Please treat it with caution. Ael's voice immediately issued a warning the moment the venom appeared abnormal. Understood. In fact, there was no need for Ael's reminder. Ray Minkai had already seen the changes in the venom. The braids that moved without wind danced behind the venom like ghosts. This was the visual effect caused by the performance of the heat dissipation system when the venom was fully driving the lambda drive system. However, this also represented another answer. The other party was going all out. Bang! Ray Minkai, who realized this, had no intention to continue the close combat with Xia Yulan, who had already fallen into madness. Instead, he flipped the crossbow's left hand and used the same trick again. He fired a shot at Xia Yulan's venom. The lethality of the bullet that broke through the air was something that even the crazy Xia Yulan did not dare to take head-on. Otherwise, she would inevitably end up like her sister Xia Yufang, being shot down by the crossbow. Whoo! Amidst the whistling of the bullet, the venom narrowly dodged the shot, but before Xia Yulan could launch another attack, the crossbow that had retreated a few steps fired again. Bang! Another gunshot rang out as a bullet pierced through the air. The venom dodged again. Bang! Another shot. When the venom was forced back again and pushed away from the crossbow's shooting range, Xia Yulan, who was unwilling to continue being suppressed by the crossbow, exploded. The venom grabbed the debris on the ground, such as the containers and warehouses that were still burning with sparks, and threw them at the crossbow like a gust of wind. While the crossbow's line of sight was blocked by the debris, the venom quickly circled around from the side and launched an attack at the crossbow. The venom's braids danced wildly, and the light of the lambda drive system continued to spread in front of the venom like ripples, making the venom look both beautiful and deadly at this moment. The crossbow waved its long sword and cut down all the debris thrown by the venom. Not long after, the ground under the crossbow was already full of debris. On the other side, while the crossbow's attention was focused on the debris, the venom that was focused on the debris suddenly flew out, waving the dagger in her hand and went straight to the back of the crossbow. It was the heat dissipation system that was activated because the lambda drive system was activated. While the braids were twisting crazily, vicious venom's short knife exploded with a twisted light, as if it was a burning flame. As long as this blow hit, Xia Yulan firmly believed that the crossbow would inevitably fall into eternal damnation. The wind was tearing, the light on the dagger was twisting, eager to drag the crossbow into the abyss of death. However, this blow was still the same as the outcome of the Gemini's previous attacks on the crossbow. It was clearly going to be hit, but at the last moment it was blocked by the crossbow that could not be returned in time. It was as if the Gemini's attack had been seen through by Ray Minkai from the beginning. A longsword. A longsword that also rose with a similar light blocked the dagger slashed by the venom. Moreover, in this light, Xia Yulan saw a dark muzzle quickly raised and pointed at the venom's head. Even though there was still a thick steel armor between the muzzle and the muzzle, Xia Yulan could already feel the shudder of death. In the increasingly cold fear of death, Xia Yulan could even feel the aura of death brought by the gradual pull of the trigger in the depths of the muzzle in front of her. Ka! Bang! The gunshot rang out. The bullet called death rushed out of the barrel with the lethality of destroying everything, blowing the armor on the Venom's body into pieces. In the flickering flames, Xia Yulan's ears were filled with the lingering gunshots, and her eyes were full of refracted flames, like stars in the sky. But at this moment, as if time had stopped, Xia Yulan found that the Venom that was hit by the crossbow was not the Venom she was driving. Instead, it was Xia Yufang, who should have lost consciousness in the battle just now, and the Venom, who had lost control. Sister! The lavender Venom, who had lost its arms, burst out with an amazing speed and knocked the Venom driven by Xia Yulan out of the way, saving it from the muzzle of the crossbow. But the price was to become the scapegoat of the crossbow. Among the steel fragments that filled the sky, there was a bright red color representing Xia Yufang. Even after Xia Yulan instinctively regained the balance of her Venom and stabilized her body in a sorry state, she still could not erase this scene. In order to save your sister, you risked your life? What a surprise! This scene also surprised Ray Minkai a little. He didn't expect that the twins would show a more intense emotional reaction than in his memory. But it was too late now. It's your turn. Xia Yulan. Although I feel very sympathetic to your past, this world is not so perfect. The crossbow moved its muzzle again and locked onto Venom, who was half squatting on the ground. This time, Xia Yufang and her Venom could no longer suddenly erupt and push Xia Yulan away. Go to hell! Go to hell! Go to hell! Teacher's death, and witnessing Xia Yufang pushing her away and becoming her scapegoat, Xia Yulan finally completely abandoned her rationality at this moment and completely fell into the state of being controlled by the Lambda drive system. The light of the Lambda drive system flashed, and Venom, who was about to erupt, suddenly fell silent and fell to the ground powerlessly. Has it exceeded the heat dissipation limit? Then, it's over. However, at the moment when the crossbow pulled the trigger, a tremor suddenly appeared, and Ray Minkai instinctively made a defensive move. Buzz! Under this instinct, the Lambda drive system of the crossbow lit up and wrapped the crossbow in it. Bang! In the next second, an invisible force broke through the wall condensed by the Lambda drive system of the crossbow and fiercely knocked the crossbow away. Who is it? Ray Minkai quickly stabilized the crossbow and subconsciously looked in the direction of the source of the attack. He saw a figure standing on the top of a building in the distance. The distance was so far that even the electronic eyes of the crossbow couldn't see the figure clearly. The only thing that could be seen was the face that was extraordinarily white, and the facial features couldn't be seen clearly. Nice to meet you. I'm Mr. J. Knight, it's nice to meet you. Also, Miss Q asked me to say hello to you. Immediately after, the voice from the communication channel shocked Ray Minkai. It's actually Miss Q's accomplice? Miss Q, you're her accomplice? In shock, Ray Minkai immediately drove the crossbow directly toward the building. This was the first time Ray Minkai was so close to a clue related to Miss Q. But before he could get far, he suddenly woke up. Not good. I fell into a trap. Lei Minkai, who suddenly realized that this was a trick to lure the tiger away from the mountain, immediately returned to the original position of the battle. However, he discovered that Xia Yulan's fierce poison had disappeared in this short period of time. All that was left was a scene of devastation and the remnants of the light purple fierce poison scattered on the ground. Good job, Mr. J. Well done. Ray Minkai took a few deep breaths and finally sorted out his thoughts. It turned out that the person who claimed to be Mr. J knew from the beginning that Ray Minkai was obsessed with Miss Q. Therefore, he raised his hand to trick Ray Minkai. It's just a small trick. If it wasn't for Mr. Knight being so concerned about Miss Q's existence, I'm afraid that my little trick wouldn't have succeeded. At the top of the building, the clown's figure bowed slightly. From afar, he faced the crossbow and bowed to Ray Minkai. Trust me, Mr. Knight. The separation now is to prepare for a beautiful reunion in the future. For me, the current Miss Xia Yulan still has some use. Mr. Knight, please spare her life for the time being. You must know that before a flower blooms with beautiful colors, it still needs some soil to nurture it. What if I say no? Ray Minkai's eyes were cold. That, it's not up to you, Mr. Knight. A gust of wind suddenly rose, blowing the corners of the clown's clothes, causing them to flutter. Is that so? But it's not up to you, clown. Ray Minkai snorted and coldly said, Do it? The clown's figure froze and subconsciously turned around. In the deep night sky, a military helicopter emerged from the darkness with a ripple and instantly launched 2 missiles towards the building where the clown was. The roar of the missiles tore through the night sky and also shrouded the clown's figure on the roof. Beautifully done, Mr. Knight. Boom! Boom! The 2 violent explosions dragged the entire roof into an abyss of flames. It wantonly tore and devoured everything on the roof. Lost reaction, mission completed. The mission completed reply came from the communication device, but Ray Minkai didn't feel any joy. He knew. If this person who called himself Mr. J was Miss Q's accomplice, he definitely wouldn't die so easily. Right now, he was just venting his anger from being tricked. Ow! What's the situation? Ray Minkai glanced at Xiangliang Sosuke's situation and suddenly asked. 10 serious injuries, many light injuries, and suspected signs of massive bleeding. His vital signs are seriously low, less than 50% chance of success. Not recommended for resuscitation. Is that so? AL, send a distress signal to the Dan slave's son. Let the medical team come. Understood, Knight. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.